Welcome. Almighty God, we pray for your blessing upon this council. Help and prosper its work for the advancement and benefit of its people, so that peace and happiness, unity and justice may be established amongst us all. Amen. Manningham Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as the traditional owners of the land and waterways now known as Manningham. Council pays respects to elders past, present and emerging, and values the ongoing contribution to enrich and appreciate the cultural heritage of Manningham. Council acknowledges and respects Australia's First Peoples as the traditional owners of the land and waterways across country and encourages reconciliation between all. Manningham Council also values the contributions made to Manningham over the years by people of diverse backgrounds and cultures. I welcome all members of the public who have joined us in person and online to observe tonight's proceedings. I would like to advise that tonight's meeting is being audio and video recorded. All care will be taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded by remaining in the gallery, and it is assumed your consent is given in the event that your voice and/or image is broadcast by council. No additional recording of the meeting is permitted without council's consent. I will introduce each item of business as listed on the agenda by calling it by number and then reading the title. I will then call for a mover and seconder of the motion on an item before opening any debate. Only councillors can join the debate on an item. Councillors may adopt the officer's recommendation in the report or propose amendments or supplementary motions. I would like to draw your attention to item 7 on tonight's agenda. Public question time provides people with the opportunity to ask questions of council. Council has allocated 30 minutes for question time, and the process for public question time is set out in our governance rules. Questions must be received prior to the start of the meeting to be asked. Where we receive advance notice of the question in accordance with our governance rules, we will provide a verbal response to the question at our meeting. Questions we receive just prior to the meeting may be taken on notice if we don't have the information available to provide a meaningful response. If this happens, we will provide you with a written response to your question within 10 working days. Our governance rules provide that we will deal with a maximum of 2 questions per person and up to 4 questions on one issue. These rules will be enforced to ensure a broad range of topics and perspectives can be heard during question time. When it is your turn to ask a question, I will ask you to come to the lectern in the gallery. After you ask your question, you have 2 minutes to make a brief statement. If you have more than 2 questions, please submit these additional questions in writing to council through our normal channels. To ensure the efficient conduct of our meeting and the maximum participation during question time, all question and answers shall be as brief as possible and no discussion will be entered into. Councillors and the gallery are reminded that question time is to be conducted in a respectful manner and have consideration for the diverse views of those present. Any disorderly conduct will be managed in accordance with our governance rules. Item 2, apologies and requests for leave of absence. There are no apologies. Councillors, are there any requests for leave of absence? No, thank you. Item 3, prior notification of conflict of interest. Councillors, I would like to advise that I have received a written disclosure of conflict of interest for tonight's meeting from the CEO for item 17.2, CEO employment matters. The interest being a material conflict of interest as the item relates to his annual performance review. Would anyone else like to give notice of a conflict of interest? No, thank you. Item 4, confirmation of minutes. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Anna Chen.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the minutes of the council meetings held on 27th August 2024 be confirmed.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Andrew Connellan. Councillor Anna Chen, did you want to speak to that? Councillor Andrew Connellan? No. We'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Presentations. 5.2 Staff Service Awards. Councillors, we have had a number of staff who have recently celebrated significant milestones in their years of service here at Manningham, and I would like to acknowledge the following officers. 20 years of service. Robin Glawson, City of Planning and Livability Team. Mark Fleming, Parks and Environment Team. Linda Kenworth, Waste Resource Recovery Team. Carolyn McKenzie, Healthy Ageing Team. Michaela Sims, Healthy Ageing Team. Then we move to 25 years of service. We have Anna Devoyne, City Compliance Team. We have Kim Martini, Building Services Team, and Jeff Tremmell, Finance Service Team. 30 years of service. We have Jenny Horvath, Community Grants and Events Team, and Kurt Mottleshead, our Asset and Environment Team. We're getting to some big numbers now. 40 years of service. We have John O'Brien, our Asset and Environment Team, and our biggest yet, 45 years of service, Helen Rennie, City Compliance Team. I would like to thank all staff for their contribution, dedication and hard work during their time at Council. Congratulations and outstanding efforts. Item 5.2.
Before we move on to the next item of business, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge our outgoing Mayor, Councillor Carly Lang, as we reach the end of our current mayoral term. I would like to move, on behalf of Council and its residents of the municipality, a motion of appreciation be recorded to the outgoing Mayor, Councillor Carly Lang.
Do I have a seconder for the motion?
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Michelle Kleinert. Councillor Laura Main, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I would love to. It truly has been such an honour to work alongside your deputy over the past year. From the beginning of your tenure as a councillor back in 2020, you really have served as a dedicated community advocate. It's worth noting that even before you were elected on council, you were an engaged and active community member as president of the Warrandyte Community Association. And it was really clear to us as a group of councillors that you were ready to take on this role and serve us as our mayor to carry us through the final year of our term. You truly have been a dedicated and wonderful mayor. You have attended every community event you possibly can fit into your schedule. It's been so impressive. You've taken on every community concern with equal dedication and energy, and you've done it all with this amazing, bubbly and positive attitude that we all know and love so much. So, as I said when I first welcomed you as mayor, if I could describe Councillor Lang as one word, it would be caring. You're a nurturing mother, an empathetic teacher, a supportive colleague to myself and the councillors around the room, and you've been a truly compassionate mayor. Manningham is so lucky to be led by a mayor with a heart as big as Councillor Lang's. Finally, I'd like to thank your children, Alyssa, Sienna, Malachi, and your partner Greg, for all their support and sacrifice throughout this year. So thank you truly for all of your hard work, and I wish you all the best of luck in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Laura Main. Councillor Michelle Kleinert, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, you have done a stellar job in the role of Mayor for the City of Manningham. It's never easy in the final year, and this year, I have to say, has been a particularly difficult one, and I'd like to acknowledge that you have done an outstanding job in continuing to stay connected, to not burn out, to hold your own and lead us. And on behalf of my fellow councillors, we're very proud of all the work that you've done Every time you go out and you talk to community, when you meet with groups, you're representing Manningham, and we're very proud of the work that you've done. Certainly, I reflect on what you've brought to the role, and every mayor brings something different. And it's just wonderful to look and see that you've just continued to shine and grow and expand. And I look back and I often think to myself, a student that is taught by you will be an amazing student, because you are truly caring, you're humble, you are very hardworking, and you just have been always very considered across keeping us fellow councillors all in line. You're scary sometimes, so you keep us in line. That's the teacher coming out, and I say that in a lovely way. It's really wonderful to see that. I know that students are in amazing hands, and I know I can understand why you're such an amazing school teacher, because you've really brought that through in your role. Like all great things, you know, the role of mayor every year comes to an end, and it's a very unique opportunity, because if you look at every other workplace, you don't have this role where you're in a place in a leadership role and then it comes to an end, and that's the role of mayor. You have contracts, so you work in a place and you finish that contract and you move on, but the role of mayor is a unique one, and it's never easy. So as you sail the high seas in the aeroplane, looking over the whole municipality, of which you've done equally, you come to a point where you come to land and you come back home to your livelihood, back to your family, who have really surrendered their year to have you be Manningham. So I want to acknowledge and thank you for that. And the community don't see all, they see the fun stuff, you know, when you're out and connecting, and the citizenships that we all love and all those events. But what they don't see is the continued looking at emails and responding to residents and responding to councillors and their concerns. And the work it never stops and it never ends. And it's 7 days a week. It's often, you know, you've got to get up early in the morning to see what's ahead. Before you go to bed, you make sure that there's nothing that's happened. And, you know, you've done that without a break. And so thank you. Thank you so much. You've done us proud.
Thank you, Councillor Michelle Clannett. Would anybody else like to speak for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, you've definitely been in the top 4 mayors this term. No, I've actually served over 12 years at 2 councils with 7 mayors, and look, you're definitely in the top 3. So I think you've been a fantastic mayor this year. You chaired a couple of very difficult meetings this year with aplomb. You're a great solver of conflict. This council's been very functional. There's been no leaks. There's been no public sledging. There's been no conduct panels. And I think it's a credit to all of us, but I think your caring, nurturing, solving approach has been a very important part of the overall high functioning of the council. You know, someone said to me the other day, I can't believe you all talk to each other. You know, I'm at a council where normally you have to have separate Christmas parties or something like that. So we're all happy to talk to each other, and I think you are probably the friendliest and greatest joiner of all of us, and I think that's a credit to you. You're very well suited, temperament-wise, to being mayor. Tim Walls is showing we need more teachers in politics. You know, like it's a natural profession for politics, and you've shown it. You are the master of the class here. It's quite telling that there's no candidate so far nominating against you in the Yarra Ward. That reflects a confidence of your community and the fact that you haven't annoyed anyone, that they're so motivated that because of something you said or did that they've decided to run against you, that you haven't attracted that, partly because of the way you've conducted yourself, including through difficult debates. I'm the only one retiring, apparently, and no one else, but I do, you know, when I'm out of council, I happily tell people that, you know, I'd vote for you again as mayor. I think you've been a great mayor, and I predict that you will get more opportunities to do so in the future. You've been strong on financial management. You know, occasionally, I would argue almost too conservative. I'd try to get you to spend a bit of money on white fences or netting or lighting, and you know, sometimes I did find you hard work, even getting you over the line for the waste charge. Freeze this year, I didn't quite manage to persuade you to support that. But our financials are in great shape with the 70 million in cash I was happy to step off early from the audit committee because you'd done the course at the AICD, you were interested in governance and you were keen to serve, and I was happy to stand aside. And you've been already a great member on the audit committee over the first 2 meetings you've attended. So congratulations. It's not often a first term councillor wins the trust of their colleagues to be mayor when 90 to 4 doesn't go. So you've been in the top 4 in first term. That's a credit to you. And I just wish to sincerely congratulate you for your leadership in the last 12 months.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Would anyone like to speak to the motion? Thank you, Councillor Jeff Goff.
Oh, Madam Mayor, thank you very much for an absolutely wonderful year. I don't know anyone that has as much enthusiasm as you do. It's constant, sometimes annoyingly constant, because there's always a positive spin on absolutely everything. But you are really good with the community, and I think the community have been very lucky in this. It has been a difficult year. And I think Manningham is very lucky that you've been there as our representative in the face of Manningham through a number of issues that have been very, very, I suppose, close to the heart, very, very emotive for people. And to be able to ride through that with your positive nature has, I have great admiration for your ability to do it. Your commitment has been absolutely beyond, what does the BMV say? Beyond expectations, I think this is their little line, and it has been. Now, one of the things that doing what you've done for a whole year is ignored a lot of people as well. Greg rang me about 3 weeks ago and said, look, I just can't wait for this to get back. I haven't seen enough of my wife because she's out every night and day, and the kids are ringing and saying we're being neglected. But it does, on a really truthful note, it does take a lot of, I suppose, a lot of sacrifice by the family when you are doing your job and going to all of those things. I don't think people realise how much they miss out on and how much extra actually goes on to your partner. I don't think any money can get your year back with them, but I think you will walk away from this year being really, I suppose, able to celebrate and know that you've had a wonderful year in here, and look forward in the future with your work here. It'd be fantastic. So thanks very much on behalf of I suppose myself, but also the people in Manningham for all of that wonderful work you have done throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeff Goff. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? Thank you, Councillor Andrew Conlon.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Can I just congratulate you on a great year? It's been great to see you develop as a councillor and a mayor over the 4 years, and it's been great to work with you right back at the start when we had the Arundel Road thing. That was that long ago, it has been great to see you work. And as people have said, you are a really caring person for the community. You always listen to people, and Manningham has been served very well, and we have been served very well as a group of councillors by your leadership. And as other people have said, the tough thing is the sacrifice, the personal sacrifice, and I know you've got a caring family who will have really they've been they've had to make those sacrifices too. So I know that that they, even though it's hard for them, they would have admired you as much as we have, and as many residents have over the last 12 months. Because you do have to put yourself out there. You do have to, as Councillor Goff said, you have to go above and beyond a lot of times when you don't expect to. and we have, we've had conflict within the community about, one particular issue, and I think at that point you realise you actually, you were open about saying, well, we could have done this better, and corrected that, and that was a great sign of humility and a great sign of leadership. So thank you again for the last year. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew Connellan. Are there any other speakers to the motion? Thank you, Councillor Anna Chen.
I think all has been said about all the good things, so I couldn't find out any other words that can speak highly about you. And I just want to use one example. Just a few minutes ago, I spoke with my mayor about how I feel about a particular issue, and I particularly mentioned about my objection and unhappiness. And I just assure you that the mayor listened to me and with empathy and with understanding. That made me feel much, much better. And it still hasn't solved my issues, but I really appreciate your time and your patience and your smiles and by actively listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anna Chen. Are there any other speakers to the motion? From Councillor Thomas Lightbody.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the year that we're coming to an end of, the mayoral year that is, not Christmas yet. But I would like to echo what everyone else has said as well tonight. I think you've been a fantastic mayor, extremely caring, and I think you have been this entire council term as well. There's been many walks. Bring up Arundel again. I remember going for a lap around Park Orchards with you so we could really talk about the issues and get to understand how the residents sort of would walk and experience those places. And I just think about all the times we've done that for a number of issues, and the amount of time you've given the rest of us as well over the years is a big sacrifice and also a big commitment to working with us and working as a team. So I'd just like to thank you for all of that.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas Lightbody. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? Thank you, Councillor Deirdre Day Monte.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And as Councillor Chen said, a lot has been said that I would have already said. So supporting all of those great attributes of you as the Mayor. The other part that I always notice is how well prepared you are for every meeting and every briefing and every committee meeting, and not just reading the papers, but I'm sure you've already got sticky notes and flags on all of your documents. And I just think your preparedness and your intelligence, your note-taking, this is a very, very important role for you, and you do it 100% thoroughly. So thank you for all of your leadership, and I've certainly learnt from you as a leader, and so I appreciate all that you've done for the community, but all you've done for us as a council, particularly in this year, which has been a difficult year for many reasons. So thank you, Carly.
Thank you, Councillor Deirdre Day Monte. Councillor Laura May, did you want to close?
Yes, I'd like to ask a question. Mr. CEO, do you want to add any comments?
Well, thank you for the question, Councillor. Yes, I would. That would be wonderful. Thank you very much. Look, the councillors have said it all about yourself operating as the mayor in the community, and also as the leader of the councils for the last 12 months. But I just wanted to highlight the work that you've done again behind the scenes, which the councillors know happens, and particularly those that have been mayors before understand closeness and the impact that a mayor has on the organisation and on the people that work for you and serve the Manningham community, work for council and the Manningham community. So I want to thank you again for all of the energy that you have brought, as the councillors have articulated, all of the things that they've said in terms of your commitment, the sacrifice of your family. I won't repeat all those things, but we've been appreciative of that as an executive team and as an organisation for the commitment that you've had. The energy and the passion that the councillors have spoken about has absolutely been infectious right through the organisation as well. We appreciate that. Personally wise, I've very much appreciated your support to me, as I've had from each of the mayors throughout this term. Checking in every now and then. Occasionally I'll get text messages after meetings just to check in that everything is okay with the organisation or with
with myself. Every now and then I'll get text messages to say I'm running late because Sienna's in the hospital again. I won't miss those. Sorry, Sienna. But again, it's reflective of your passion and your thinking about us as an organisation. We want to thank you for that, and also want to wish you all the best with whatever comes. And I wanted to also reinforce what Councillor Diamanti said in terms of your level of preparation. The level of preparation that you put into council meetings, reading reports, our catch-ups, SBSs, all of those sort of things has been first class, and I think that's really assisted in maintaining good governance, because you've questioned us, as you should, you've tested us, and all the time, and don't underestimate it, a real steely resolve to put community first. So congratulations and well done.
Thank you, CEO Andrew Day. Pardon? Did you? No, you. Oh,
And that's just something small for you as well.
thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I will say something then, and I will make sure that I keep to a time limit. The reason I say that is I got to say something to you all on Wednesday when we met together, addressing each one of you personally, but as a council group. And I am very proud to have been Mayor for 2023 to 24, and I've been very proud to work with each one of you. I've really enjoyed citizenship ceremonies, presenting our new citizens of Manningham, our new residents, our new neighbours, with that warm and friendly smile, and to know that their journey of citizenship and they've chosen Manningham has just been such a joy. So thank you for giving me that opportunity. And also advocating for the needs of our community. I was asked what was the highlight of the mayoral year, and I would have to say that that has been getting to know every single community group that has come to council. I was already deeply involved in my ward and knew my community groups. Of course, I continue to get to know them more, but to know all of the community groups in all of the wards and all of Manningham has just been wonderful. To know how much good we have, all our citizens and residents that we care so much for, and to have all their volunteerism. Manningham has said to be the highest number of volunteers in Victoria. That's because we have the best municipality and the best residents in Victoria. And I have enjoyed the opportunity to get to know every one of them. I understand my positivity or my rose-coloured glasses or my joy may be annoying at times, but I actually do believe that every situation you can learn from, and so I've enjoyed the learning that I've been able to have this year. And I believe every situation we have a choice how we view it. And if we view it positively, we can try and bring out all the positivity, all the learnings, or turn it positive, no matter how difficult the situation. So I choose to look at things that way for that very reason. I just wanted to say I've enjoyed working together for our community vision. When our community panel put all of that work into that community vision, I'm so proud how we have taken that on and made every decision that we make about aiming for that community vision. And that just shows how important the policy and the strategic decisions that we make is all for our community's benefit, because it's to address our community vision. Through you, CEO, I also wanted to thank the Manningham staff. Thank you, Manningham staff, for your hard work, for your dedication. When we are out in the community, we are all role models. I think I've said this before, if you wear the Manningham logo, if you drive around in a car with the Manningham logo, we're all seen the same. But it makes us so proud to know that our staff are also so hardworking and they do it all for the benefit of our community. That makes our job easier, happier, and to be so proud that we can work with everybody to make Manningham the most livable and best place to be. I just wanted to end with saying the mayoral term has been a joy, and it has been about bringing our community vision to life, but it isn't possible without your family support. So I do want to thank my husband for being the all-in wife, all-in husband, all-in provider, all-in transport mate, traveller, all-in coordinator of family affairs. He has been all in, which means I can be the all-in mayor. So thank you to my husband and to my children and for all of you for your support. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you. Do I have to put that motion to a vote? Thank you. I'll now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Item 6, petitions. We have no petitions. So item 7, public question time. We have received some questions for tonight's council meeting. Anyone who has registered a question with council will have the opportunity to read their question or choose to have their question read by our CEO. I will call upon those who have registered their questions to come to the lectern and to come forward to the lectern in the gallery and ask their question. So our first question has been submitted by Jenny Mina. Jenny, if you are in the gallery, if you could please come to the lectern and ask your question, and you will have 2 minutes to make a brief statement to provide context to your question. So thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors and council officers. My first question is, how is it acceptable that residents of Willow Bend were advised at 4 p.m, the day prior to a tree removal, of the commencement of its removal at 10 a.m. the next day, despite seeking clarification since June? And how is it acceptable that within 1 week, the communicated time to remove trees and prepare for works behind 97 Willow Bend has gone from November to 2 weeks? Why is this poor level of communication and consultation being allowed to go unchecked? My second question is, can council advocate for NELP to consider the removal, to reconsider, I should say, the removal of all 8 trees behind 93 to 97 Willow Bend, and at the very least, delay planned tree removals flagged for this area to beyond November, December or January until further investigations to this area can take place? This would allow us to A, investigate whether tree removals are necessary or if there is an alternate location for the sewer line and or equipment that does not require trees to be impacted. B, clear the season when we will all be hoping to use our outdoor areas. And C, also offer my neighbour some reprieve during an incredibly stressful period that could potentially further impact her and her family's long-term well-being. And I'll just make my supporting statement for background information. During previous so-called community consultations, we had been advised that trees behind our properties would not be impacted by North East Link project. Previous statements have been made relating to the preservation of trees and the importance of retaining these few trees, not just due to the directly impacted residents, but to the amenity of the general area. We brought this to council's attention and had your unanimous support in late June, and we genuinely thank you for this. We have been in discussion with NELP about the preservation of trees behind our homes since June, with very little clarity or clear communications from them. We have also suffered noise pollution, dirt in our outdoor areas and directional light streaming into our homes, now even worse with the removal of a significant tree. The last-minute notice and excuses being put forward for this tree removal and more upcoming are unacceptable and breach all known basic standards of timely, transparent and informative communication regarding works that significantly affect our lives and homes. This has now impacted our homes and well-being. We met with NELP and BTA on 5th of September to seek more answers on the fate of these trees. We were surprisingly advised that day that works would commence in November involving the removal of several trees around behind 93 to 97 Willow Bend. After this, I encouraged a neighbour, Nicole, who's here with us tonight, whose property backs onto this area, to make contact with NELP. She met with them on 11 September and they advised her the trees would be removed in 2 weeks. This has left Nicole, who has been dealing with a cancer diagnosis and that of her sons as well, suffering incredible additional stress after 18 months of surgeries, chemo and radiation, while also trying to sell her home right now. These planned tree removals will also have a financial impact on home values. There is complete disregard for people's well-being. Nicole and her husband Gavin are present with me this evening, as are neighbours from 97 Narhead, 95 Narhead and 97 Elizabeth and Michael. This should be a time for Nicole and her family to be able to start healing and moving forward, but NELP has no regard for community well-being. We as a collective also do not believe these trees really need to go, just to make way for a hard stand where digging equipment is planned to be located.
Thank you, Jenny, for your background information. I will ask a response from Fiona Toys, Acting Director of Planning and Livability, to respond.
Thank you for the question, Ms Minna. NELP is a state-run project and Council shares residents' concerns regarding communications being received from NELP. Council similarly was awaiting further information on the proposed sewer works and only received notification of the Willow Bend tree removal at short notice. Council has raised concerns regarding comms to residents and to Council across the broader project at the CEO level, including the inconsistency in messaging to different stakeholders, that Council is waiting a response from NELP still in regards to how comms will be improved in the future. In respect to your second question, at a recent presentation from NELP or BTA to residents after the removal of the significant tree mentioned, it was stated by BTA that tree removal and preparation works were scheduled for September, with the sewer works themselves commencing in November. Council emphasises with the situation of your neighbour and the stress and the impacts of the NELP project must be placing on the neighbourhood. Council's previous advocacy work through the NELP project has always been to maximise tree retention as much as possible. Unfortunately, as much as Council can advocate for positive outcomes for the community, NELP is an entity in its own right and is responsible for making the final decision. For the tree retention behind Willow Bend properties, Council officers have been in contact with BTA in order for the compound associated with the sewer works to be rationalised as much as possible, or for BTA to relocate part of the compound within the Council reserve at 91 Willow Bend, if it increases tree retention. And Council is still optimistic that this option could be explored. However, as much as Council would love to assist with delaying the removal of the trees, previous advocacy works have been for the NELP works along the freeway to be completed as quickly as possible to allow for the Coonung Creek Trail to be reopened to the community due to the significant detours the works are creating. Thank you.
Thank you for the response. Our next question is from Greg Pell. Greg, if you would like to come to the lectern to ask your question, and you will have 2 minutes to make a brief statement to provide context to your question.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. My name's Greg Pell and I'm the President of St David's Career Club, located in the northeast of Donvale Reserve. By way of background information, Donvale Reserve is one of the jewels in the crown of Manningham and has been well supported by Council in recent years, with renovations to the Donvale Footy Club Pavilion, the improvements at Donvale Tennis Club, and the new cricket nets for the St David's Career Club, which were completed last year and have been very much appreciated by our club. As President of St David's, I was wondering what the process would be to get a new pavilion, similar to those installed during the council term at Rychecks Reserve, installed in the northeastern corner of the Donvale Reserve to replace our tired, subscale, 52-year-old brick facility. Not only is the pavilion really starting to show its age with numerous plumbing issues last year, the main auditorium, even by council's own size guidelines, is too small, resulting in members sitting outside in the rain when we've had some of our social functions. We simply can't fit everybody inside. The female toilets also open straight into the main auditorium, which has made some of our female members uncomfortable and have had to use toilets down on the bottom oval at times when they felt uncomfortable. There is growing usage of the two ovals that are serviced by the existing pavilion, including the full St David's Career Club program, growing soccer usage with a full-time winter tenant now in the Templestowe Wolves Soccer Club, and a separate winter cricket competition which doesn't play anywhere else in Manningham. In addition, both St David's Career Club and the Templestowe Wolves have active girls programs now. And another issue that isn't being catered for by our facility is girls-only change rooms. The fact that the council also has recently made a significant investment in state-of-the-art lighting covering all three of the top ovals illustrates this growing usage and just how important Donvale Reserve is as a sporting facility to the community. My first question: after council collectively invested more than $25 million over the past 15 years in new or upgrade pavilions at Templestowe Reserve, Petty's Reserve, Domini Reserve, Warrandyte, Tedanjani, Shrams, Rychecks, and most recently the new $3 million baseball pavilion, what do we at St David's need to do to get onto this impressive council investment program? And my second question: what investments in new or improved sporting pavilions do you currently have in the forward agenda, or is there room for Donvale Reserve to become one of the major sporting initiatives of the next council term? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I'll ask a response from Lee Robson, our Director of Connected Communities.
Thanks, Greg, and thank you for everything you do for sport. Certainly an important part of what we do in Manningham. So outdoor sports infrastructure projects are prioritised based on a predetermined criteria, and that criteria considers things like asset condition, all sorts of risks, the benefit of participation and environmental sustainability outcomes. Projects are added to this list as a result of user groups completing the Recreation Capital Works application form, which is on Council's website, or it can be done through facility condition audits. Council officers are currently undertaking condition audits of all sporting pavilions, which will help inform future projects. This will include analysing the need for an upgrade of the Donvale Reserve Northern Pavilion, and a council officer will be in touch with you soon to discuss this process in more detail. In terms of your second question, we do have several pavilion upgrade projects within our 4-year capital works plan, and we tend to work in 4 and 10-year blocks to really project out where those priorities will fall in our capital works program. So the ones that are at this stage envisaged within the next 4 years are Wonga Park, Eastern Reserve Pavilion, Tom Kelly Athletics Track Pavilion and Timber Reserve Pavilion for design work. Refurbishment works are also scheduled at a number of other reserves. So the Capital Works program, as we've already said, determines the priority projects, and we go through an assessment process and we'll go through that with you. So an officer will be in touch in the next coming week or so. Thank you for your question.
Thank you for the response. That is the end of question time, so I'll move to item 8. Those in the gallery, please feel free if you would like to leave. You are welcome, but you are welcome to stay as well. Thank you for being here. Item 8, admission of urgent business. There are no items of urgent business this evening. Item 9, planning permit applications. 9.1, application for review P363 2024 of planning application PLN 24/0017 for 2 Frederick Street, Doncaster. Amended plans for VCAT for the use and development of the land for a 13-storey residential building comprising of 403 dwellings and the removal of easements. Do I have a mover for the motion?
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you. So the mover was Councillor Laura Mayne and the seconder was Councillor Andrew Conlon. Councillor Laura Mayne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I just think to begin with, for a bit of clarity for the community, because it's a bit of a different situation, this application is being considered by VCAT, therefore Council will not be approving a planning permit, but must endorse a position to be considered at the tribunal. So this proposal is for 403 dwellings, that's 13 levels and 2 levels of basement car parks, making up 477 spaces, and it's located just down the street from us here at the Civic Centre, behind the Nest development, if anyone's familiar with that, and will provide a cascading skyline in Doncaster Hill. So a bit of history. So council officers initially did not approve this application at the tribunal. And this was on the grounds of primarily related to the building exceeding our 40-metre mandatory height limit, excessive traffic impacts and congestion, and poor solar access to new dwellings. But the proposal has since been amended to respond to the officer recommendations regarding the urban design, traffic and parking feedback. And it's worth noting that there has been a high level of compliance that is addressed to all of our initial fundamental issues with the height, character, the access, daylight and the internal amenity of the facility. So now the architectural detailing is considered reasonably high, and this is best defined by the patterned arrangement of balconies that go around the building. And this is something that I think is best displayed with a bit of visual aid. So for community members who are interested in understanding more about this development, I really encourage you to look to the report and have a look at some of the rendering we have in there. And it's also, I think, worth noting that the proposal exceeds the recommended number of car spaces due to the multi-level basements. So with these changes, the proposal is now considered satisfactory by council officers and has responded to the objections against the Manningham planning scheme with, as I said, a high degree of compliance, though there are some minor changes that are recommendations through permit conditions, which result in a full compliant outcome. So I'd really like to thank the officers for all their time and energy they've put into this proposal. And I think it's worth noting that this is a really great example of how our expert planners here in local government, with all of their local knowledge, can produce what is a better outcome for our community, which I think is something that's really worth noting. So thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Laura Mayne. Councillor Andrew Conlon, did you want to speak to the motion? Do I have any other speakers for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne.
Thank you, Mayor. So obviously, never like an applicant running off to VCAT before council has had the opportunity to, both through the officers and formally through the chamber, with a substantial application like this to consider the matter. So that's an initial disappointment, but this site is actually a very interesting site. A couple of acres. For the long time, it was the head office of Hansen Technology, $890 million global listed company, which is based there. They used to have their board meetings there. Richard Alston used to attend board meetings there.
Councillor Jeffcoff, what's your point of order? Microphone, yep.
Relevance to the motion. This is a planning motion, and it needs to stick to the task.
Councillor Stephen Mayne, the planning application was for the site, and you were giving history for the site. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Mentioning other people and other things is irrelevant from the planning application.
No.
Mentioning names of people and things like that is irrelevant from a planning application and is taken separately. This is done not on who or what or who's doing it, but on the actual merits of the thing.
If we can stick to the history of the site and those that have history with the site only.
Thank you, Mayor. So I do remember speaking to the owner of the site, Ken Hansen, who was the founder of Hansen Technology. And I remember before he passed in 2012, having a conversation with him at Harry's Cafe, where he talked about, I might develop it one day when the train comes through, but I'm not going to be pushed into it by council. Now, the company finally moved out in 2022, even though as the report notes, the lease runs till the end of the year, and Ken's estate sold it in 2022 to, as the report notes, to Shea Her, Brisbane-based developer, which actually received an award last year for the best tall building in Australia, 82 stories in Brisbane. I'm disappointed that this applicant, who owns big sites like Pentridge and built the W Hotel in Brisbane, has a big record. I'm still disappointed that they haven't respected our processes and have run off to VCAT like this. But on the other hand, we're under pressure to build 38,000 new residences by 2051, and this will be 403 residences, which will make it one of the biggest single apartment developments in Manningham. The officers were concerned that it breached the 40-metre height limit, and I think that in light of this pressure to deliver 38,000 houses, that 40 metres is probably a bit strict on Doncaster Hill, and I can understand the argument that on a big site like this, you probably should be able to go not to full Box Hill, but you could probably sort of go a little bit higher than what we've currently got. I think it is interesting that we've come up with over 100 conditions. Sometimes when people say councils, they get in the way, they're too slow, too many conditions. When you read the pages and pages of black text, it does send a bit of a message about speed and sort of trying to get housing into a housing crisis.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. That's time.
Small extension, Mayor, please.
Do I have a mover for an extension? That's Councillor Anna Chen. Do I have a seconder for an extension? That's Councillor Andrew Conlon. All those in favour for an extension? And that's carried unanimously. You have a further 2 minutes, Councillor Stephen Mayne.
So as the report notes, it would have been preferable for this to be a mixed-use development, even to have some sort of functional cafe or retail on the ground floor. But we've got the L shape. We don't particularly have mixed use or commercial. But it does address this issue of the housing shortage. We've had very few large-scale developments actually commence in this term. So I personally do hope that this actually gets delivered. I do hope that VCAT pays attention to our over 100 conditions. This is actually how it will play, is that this report will go to VCAT and the member will look at this. I hope that we do, maybe not lawyer up, but officer up, to give it some grunt, because 3 of our residents have objected and have become parties. So our residents are interested. There were 16 objections. We are trying to negotiate the best possible outcome. So we should go hard and strong in VCAT and argue for as many of our proposed conditions to be adopted. And I just hope that we finally get an outcome that has quite a few tweaks, taking in what our professional officers are saying, but ultimately does get built in the next couple of years to help meet those targets and deal with the housing shortage right across Melbourne.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Yep, Councillor Goff, question?
Yeah, my question is, I've heard a lot about rushing off to VCAT. Did this pass the 60 days or was it taken to VCAT? You can't go to VCAT before the time has come due, can you?
Yep. Fiona Toys, were you happy to answer the question?
Yeah, that's fine. It was actually a failure to determine appeal.
Thank you. So council didn't make the decision in the required time and therefore it went to VCAT.
correct. The decision was not made within 60 statutory days.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Goff. Do I have...
Yeah, the reason is I don't know why we can be annoyed about someone taking the process.
Sorry, Councillor Goff, I was going to ask for anyone against the motion. Are you against?
No.
No. Do I have any other speakers for the motion? Yep. Thank you, Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do endorse this, and yes, we are going off to VCAT with a whole lot of things, and in many ways we need to actually put this in so there is some representation of our thoughts at that hearing that may get there, but it's not taken for granted that anything that we have put in here will be taken up. But we do need to do it for our community according to the things we've got at the moment, because we're in a great deal of change coming up in planning at the moment, where things are going to change, and I think that's what the next motion's about, and the one after, yeah. So we've got a lot of motions coming up about these changes in planning that are actually happening, but indeed, when I was looking through it, it's probably a look into the future. There are a lot of very small apartments in that building, a very small area. And I know that there are comments made throughout here with regard to that, but it's not, it might be good for a person, but we've got very small rooms and very small corridors and not very much living space. You've got a kitchen table, perhaps a couch, and there's not much else in it, so they're very tight. But other than that, I think it's important that we do pass this.
Thank you, Councillor Jeff Goff. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? No. Councillor Romain, would you like to close? Without any other speakers, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Item 10, City Planning. 10.1, Manningham submission for Doncaster Park and Ride. Do I have a mover? Councillor Deirdre Del Monte.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Anna Chen. Councillor Deirdre Del Monte, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I want to thank the officers for putting together this submission. It's a very detailed submission on the proposed Doncaster Park and Ride. I too can share the officers' concerns about the proposed development and agree it shouldn't be supported in its current form. And I'm standing as the ward councillor because while primarily we're talking about a Doncaster Park and Ride, it does have wider ramifications for that area at the boundary between Manningham and Burundara, nestled at the end of Tullamore Ward. Firstly, and most importantly, there's no future proofing. I don't understand the process of building like for like when the facility is already at capacity. The Bulleen Park and Ride, which has always been told to us, was to address that capacity, is itself nearing capacity. So they've both been successful. So why do we replace like for like when it's not then going to future-proof the area? In fact, I'm at the position now where other than the dedicated bus lane from the Park and Ride to the freeway, I do think that will be a benefit. But other than that, what's proposed to me at the moment represents a waste of money. It's going to be an eyesore, a multi-storey building that doesn't actually generate any increased car park spaces. So I wonder, why is it being developed? Why don't, at the end of it, we just get the single level open air car park, which will be cheaper and not an eyesore on the community. So I'm a bit bemused about what we're getting when it's not going to enhance the capacity, and I don't think it's going to enhance the capacity, the livability for the residents. The proposed development, to me, it doesn't make sense. We are being pushed by the state government to increase housing density. We're being pushed to lower our emissions, to encourage other forms of transport. However, we're not given the facilities to do this, to meet these priorities. We should be celebrating facilities like the Doncaster Park and Ride and their strong use to public transport use, to reducing emissions and to enhancing Doncaster's livability and enhancing the livability of that pocket, which is often sort of like a no man's land. However, instead, we're going to close the facility for 3 years, significantly impacting public transport users and residents. And then when it reopens, we're going to give them exactly what they had 3 years prior, but just bigger and more of an eyesore. So for me, it doesn't make sense. The proposed development will have an impact on Doncaster Road access, and that will have a massive impact on local streets, Finlayson Street, Petty's Lane and Harcourt Street. We're at the end of Petty's Lane, there is a primary school. And I drove down Petty's Lane, and the cars reached about 200 metres down because the traffic lights at Doncaster Road only let 2 or 3 cars in at a time. So there's massive issues around there already. There will be an impact to the residents on Hender Street, who will have to reverse their cars from their driveway into a pick-up and drop-off zone, notwithstanding the cars that are then just waiting there to get into the pick-up and drop-off zone. In council submission, we continue to propose a mixed-use transit-oriented development, and Councillor Thomas Lightbody, when we proposed that, said it just makes sense, and I completely agree, it makes sense, because it does, it future-proofs it. It also gives something back to the community. It builds that area, it encourages livability, whether that's small retail or a place for people to park their bikes and do all of those great things. This is future-proofing. If council's design concept is not delivered, Madam Mayor, I know our officers will continue to seek the opportunity to include some additional small retail offering, just to provide something back to the community after this has been reopened. And finally, and I know our officers are very aware and working with the project, we need to do something to mitigate the impact this will have while this is closed for 3 years, and a significant impact to our residents as cars are desperately trying to work out where do we park to catch a bus. And let's hope they do still catch the bus, otherwise the Eastern Freeway, while it's being reduced, the lanes are being reduced for the North East Link construction, and then more people are driving because the park and ride is closed, it will just become very difficult. So I absolutely support the officer's recommendation, and I encourage my fellow councillors to do so as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deirdre Diamonte. Councillor Chen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a lot to say. And just get some history of Doncaster Parking Ride. And the parking ride is one of the Manhattan's major interchange. And it will serve the future Eastern Busway, and is part of the bus rapid transport system. And it's always Manhattan's highest priority transport advocacy issue. And we know how many years and how many officers' time have been spent in terms of advocacy. And I personally have many experience advocacy for that as well. So as a council, we have a vision for the future Manhattan. And we want to see a mixed use, the transit-oriented development with increased capacity for our community. Therefore, after the state government releasing its housing statement and housing target, developing Doncaster Parking Ride to a mixed-use, transit-oriented development seems to be a no-brainer and aligned with the state government's long-term housing strategy for Manhattan. Well, there are unfortunately the like-for-like in the executive document, and there are also some specific design issues, and the 3 years closure of the Doncaster Parking Ride no doubt have significant impacts to Manhattan community and bus commuters. Although council has raised these issues many times with NELP, and their response always said, well, we have a bullying parking ride for you, it has been constructed, you can use it and can mitigate the commuters, and they can use bullying parking ride. They have no idea that after the opening of bullying parking ride, it is now near capacity, and even though the Doncaster Parking Ride is still operating and without closure. So the lack of appetite of the state government to provide additional measures to mitigate the closure impacts is extremely disappointing. So in response to the exhibit document, we have prepared submissions, including which Councillor Diamanti have rightly said, several issues, mixed use, increased car park capacities, and flexibility as well. And in the event that our commissioned design concept is not delivered, so we still have some flexibilities to provide some retail opportunities for locals. But I have to say that there is also a question for NELP, whether the short time frame for exhibition and is overlapping with the caretaker period for council elections is a genuine community consultation. And we hope that the NELP, state government, are listening to many communities' concern and actively take measures to address it. In case I'm out of time, can I seek extension?
I was just about to ask Councillor Anna Chen, would you like an extension? Do I have a mover for Councillor Anna Chen? Thank you, Councillor Thomas Lightbody. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Andrew Conlon. All those in favour for an extension? And that's carried unanimously. You have a further 2 minutes, Councillor Anna Chen.
Yeah, thank you. And again, council has the local knowledge that other stakeholders do not have. The issues identified in our submissions should be taken seriously, not a box-ticking exercise. I repeat, not a box-ticking exercise. And of course, having a good relationship with NELP is important, but having our strong stance delivered and addressed to NELP is also more important to let them know that what our communities needs and what matters to our community. So to conclude, not only our submissions, I ask our residents, please, everyone, that will affect every one of us, go to the website, engage with NELP, and let them know your concerns, and let them know that we are not happy, and let them know that what we want for the Manningham community. And it's only that the numbers counts, and they listen to the numbers, and they say that, wow, there are hundreds and thousands objections and disapproval of the current executive documents. They will take it seriously and to rethink about Manningham Council's proposal. That is for every single one of us to address the future, the density issues, especially in Doncaster Hill, and in particularly the public transport issues for the whole Manningham. So please, everyone, this is our obligations, our duties to make Manningham better. And your say is very important. The submission closed on next Tuesday, 24th of September, 5 o'clock. We still have 1 week to write to let them know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anna Chen. Do I have any other speakers for the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks the other councillors for their comments. This has come to us a few times now. I remember, as Councillor Diamante said, my quote from last time when we presented our own plans for this was, it just makes sense, separate to a different quote that I was reminded of last week, which I won't be repeating. But our plans for this centre would have, for the park and ride, would have been a centre. It would have been somewhere you can get off the bus, you can get your groceries before you go home, you might have been able to go to the gym before you go home, you might have been able to get a coffee in the morning before you go into work. Instead, under these plans, this would be the same as it is now. You'd have to get off the bus, head home, then head out again if you want to do anything else. And if we're talking about having a sustainable future, imagine all the car trips that wouldn't happen if you could get your groceries before you got home. If you could just get off the bus, get your groceries, get back on a bus, or get in your car if you're parked at the park and ride, that's an entire trip saved, which means less traffic on our road. Our cities are getting bigger, our population's going to grow. We can't double the width of our roads in Manningham, we can't double the width of our streets, but we're supposed to put an extra, 75% increase in the number of dwellings we're having. But it just drives me insane that the government departments just can't talk to each other. It's the same with all the train stations they're building. They're all just train stations. It's all standalone infrastructure. You look at other cities around the world, all these developments are part of, as Councillor Monte said, transport-orientated development. You've got shops there, you've got your health and fitness centres there, you've got retirement homes above train stations, you've got just anything you can think of probably, and it exists above a train station somewhere. But in Australia, it's just a train station, and that's all it is. The only place I can possibly think of off the top of my head where there's some sort of transport-orientated development is at the Bondi Junction bus station in Sydney, which is a good example there. But it just doesn't seem to be something that's possible here, even if it would save the government money or earn them an income in the future through commercial leases. They just say, we're only doing the park, right? We're only doing the road. We're not supposed to worry about anything else. And I think that's just dropping the ball. But I would like to thank the officers for this amazing submission. I think they've done incredible work in this space, and if only our planning officers were employed, if only the government had contracted Manningham Council to run their design process for this project.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas Lightbody. Do I have any speakers against the motion, the submission? Do I have any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Stephen Mayne. Do I have any speakers to the motion? Councillor Laura Mayne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be brief because I'm just going to be reiterating and echoing the sentiments of my colleagues around the table. I just think the main thing that stood out to me when I saw the state government proposal was that it was hypocritical to put out these housing targets, 39,000 homes by 2021, talking about how we have to accommodate all of this growth and develop all of this housing, but as a state government, we're not going to help you build any of the infrastructure to support it. That was the biggest thing that stood out to me. I found it quite shocking. I was quite surprised, going off Councillor Lightbody's comments, to see that the government departments weren't working together and it wasn't a big holistic picture. And I have concerns that there isn't the holistic and considered approach that is considering the community as a whole and what that looks like for the future of Melbourne. And I also just wanted to reiterate the points of my colleagues that we are already meeting the demand for these two facilities at Doncaster and Bulleen Park and Ride. I use Bulleen most mornings to go to work, and if you're there by 9:30, if I'm going to work late, the car park's already full, which is amazing that we have this demand, but it really proves that we need more of this type of infrastructure because it's what our community wants and desires in the future. So I'd again like to reiterate the comments that I'd like to thank the officers for all of their amazing work, and once again reiterate my comments back at the other motion saying, look at the local government experts, look at the great planners we have in this sector, and their insights should really be considered more in these types of proposals. And as Councillor Chen commented, I'd really encourage all the community to submit as much as they can because all your voices matter so much, and it's a community effort to try and create some change with this proposal. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Laura Mayne. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? Yep. Councillor Stephen Mayne.
Yes, so I guess I agree with most of what's been said, just a couple of extra points. I'd like to thank NELP for coming and presenting to us confidentially. So, we often sometimes complain about the state government, not, treating us like mushrooms or whatever, but they did come in and respond in detail to the first version of our proposal. And then we obviously had to decide whether we move a bit because of what they then put up into the submission process. So they have engaged, and I think we should thank them for that. I too am disappointed they didn't move more, particularly on the capacity question. I did think they had some merit in their argument about the capacity of the site if you add in retail. I mean, do the local residents really want us to be putting up designs which will add another 300 car visits a day for a 7-Eleven? I mean, it would densify, clog up the local streets. And I think if we are going to clog up the local streets more, I would prefer extra capacity for the core function, which is obviously the park and ride. As has been said, we're already at capacity, 9:30 down the road at Thompson's Road. And I don't think anyone's quite worked out yet what's going to happen in January when this closes. And we actually will have to step up as well because there's going to be spillover effects everywhere. Personal view, I think the government should pay Westfield to provide some capacity for many of the people who currently park. There's 5,000 car parks at Westfield. You know, I've raised this at Westfield AGMs and they've said, oh, we have to have paid parking because there's a big bus depot there and we can't have people coming and parking all day. So they know that people would like to do that, and they've deliberately put up a 3-hour limit to stop that. So when we've got a 3-year massive problem, let's change that incentive system and pricing and deal with the massive shortfall at Westfield, or even some of our sites. Many of our reserves, whether it be Tedajani or Templestowe Reserve, or Bulleen Park, or Koonung Reserve, which is not far from the bus route, you know, maybe we need to review the hours of operation for them and actually designate some of them as between these hours we are going to allow commuter parking here. Because what we don't want is clogging up people's streets. What has happened in this last term is we've probably missed budget collectively over the term, maybe not quite $1 million, but by several $100,000 in parking fines revenue, because we haven't been able to find the staff. And so we haven't been finding people who've been parking all day in people's streets because we haven't had the resources, and we've seen that with our quarterly reports throughout the term. So I think we need to probably resource up on parking inspectors and really review where we want people to go and lean in on that. Don't just sit back and say, oh my God, this has happened. We know this is coming. We want the state to actually redesign this to increase expansion for the post-2028 period.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne.
All done. Okay.
Thank you. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? Thank you, Councillor Michelle Kleiner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's disappointing to see what is presented to us after, in the last year, we actually endorsed a plan. We had lots of officers come and look, you know, what does Manningham need? This was before we even heard about, you know, that we have to grow now and add another 39,000 homes into Manningham and fit that in. It was a brilliant plan and it looked at what was needed. And, you know, like for like isn't good value for money. You know, if you're spending money that you don't have and that's state government, then at least make something from it by doing something proper, something good. And where do you get a partnership in local government and state government? You don't often get where a local government says, look at this, you can do this and you'll have no problem. You won't have push from us. We'll work with you, but look at the great opportunities. And what's come back to us is something that's just, you know what, it's a box, bang, with a little bit of green. You know, the flowers that go up, what, a maximum 6 metres or something for a 20 metre thing. They didn't even do the plants properly for a green room or green wall. It's just really disappointing when we, in good faith, put a lot of work, a lot of effort to put something that said you can do so much more, so people at Tullamore can walk down, grab some stuff, just like Councillor Mayne said, actually. That's why Doncaster Shopping Town works, because you get off the bus, you do your shopping, you go home. But we don't want to go there because that's already got its own problems with parking. Doncaster Park and Ride, that's why Bulleen turned from a 20 car park space into what it is now, which is fantastic. It's great. Yeah, it misses a little bit of an amenity, the Bulleen Park and Ride, but certainly it's better than what it was. It's not like for like. And it's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous for the state government to say that our community, that the Bulleen Park and Ride will service the Doncaster Park and Ride. Because I'm telling you, state government, they're different communities. Bulleen people, Templestowe people are going into the Bulleen. They'll go there and off. Where does Doncaster, East Doncaster, Donvale, if they're not going to the train stations, if they're going there to the Park and Ride, it makes sense. But to put like for like, when it is a growing population, where we've got problems in the city where people aren't going back to work, how is this going to help people go to the city and work when you hinder them and you make it hard? It's 3 years of mess that it will be for the residents, but, you know, it's disappointing. So this submission is a, you know, excellent submission that the officers have put together. Totally agree with Councillor Chen. You know, have your say, put it in, have a look, because these are opportunities. We are trying so hard to stand up for our Manningham, but again, we just get squashed down, we get dictated to, and enough is enough.
Thank you, Councillor Michelle Kleiner. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? I would just like to speak to the motion. I just wanted to clarify because, again, I really our support and say again how important Councillor Anna Chen's comment was to the community. This is the Manningham submission to a state government proposal for Doncaster Park and Ride. We are submitting something different to what is currently out there, and I cannot encourage the community enough to get online, to look at what the government is proposing for Doncaster Park and Ride, and then look at council's submission. And in particular, the fact that we have submitted that the Doncaster Park and Ride can be used for a transit-oriented development. Now, you might not know what that is. Well, I looked that up. And that means to maximise the amount of residential or business or leisure space around transport. So it's got nothing to do with no capacity. If you live there, where you get on the bus, there is no capacity for cars in and out. Increasing the intersection is not an issue because you've lived, you've been exercising, you've been recreating, where you're then going to get on a bus to go to your employment and education zones. I cannot say enough that I also agree with a very clear statement of Councillor Thomas Lightbody. It just makes sense. So I encourage the community to get online and to see that Manningham's submission makes sense. Thank you. With no other speakers, I will put that to a vote. All those in favour of the motion? And that's carried unanimously. Item 12.2, proposed Res Code deemed to comply provisions submission. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Jeff Goff.
I move as on the paper, Madam Mayor.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Michelle Kleinert. Councillor Goff, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I suppose this is a motion where Manningham's doing what local government's supposed to do, take the cake for the state government, and we're there to get blamed and to give input back to them. You know, the state have, and look, it's Australia-wide, so let's be facing it. The problem is we are going to have to build a lot more houses. And there are hold-ups, and local government is one of them, let's face it. Let's really be truthful. You know, there are things that we need to do as a whole country to actually bring it on. What this particular one is it's given to us in Manningham, and not to everybody, not to all the councils, to actually give them feedback, only from selected councils, which Manningham is, I suppose, blessed to be able to give some feedback to it. And basically what the state government are trying to do is speed up planning applications. And we just had an example of tonight where it did go off to VCAT and it'll be held up for another 6 months, 12 months, because we didn't come to a decision. They are not coming, they're going to VCAT. The whole lot is bound up, and they want some things to go through faster. But in doing so, what they are going to be doing is bringing in some rules. Now, state government have always been in charge of planning because it's always gone to VCAT and they've always made the final decision. But this sort of accelerates it and puts it on steroids a little bit, because what will occur is any development that is fitting within their rules, regulations for that area are going to, within those parameters, are going to be able to get a tick. And local governments have, I think, in good faith in their community, have put in a whole lot of other things like residential amenity, what it looks like around their neighbourhood character, other things that we protect and things like that in the area, and the community have a right to have a bit of an objection to applications that come in that don't fit those particular things. What they're trying to do is get an ability to put them through. If they fit these, don't come to council, don't have to worry about anything. And then you get into some of the actual issues that are actually outlined in our response back to the state government with regard to this, and that is third-party right appeals. Now, I remember at the time when Doncaster Hill was proposed, we were looking at saying, well, you can't have a right to object to something going up next year, all right? But we had the whole area planned out and people had knowledge of what was going up around, and no, you couldn't complain really about a view, but then later on people did complain about a view. So removing third-party appeals will speed up things because you won't be going through the processes and that. The assessment and enforcing of standards will be up to what is in those rules and regulations. Neighbourhood character, it's very interesting because what the neighbourhood character is today isn't pretty well what it's going to be in years to come. The neighbourhood character of Doncaster Hill certainly isn't what the neighbourhood character was farmlands and orchards when I was a kid. So it really has changed twice in its elevations in there. But we do have a whole lot of things that are holding up, but these, the people need to know, are going to be taken out of a process for quite a lot of buildings that are going to be built in our area. And it's one way in which the state government can actually fast track development going up, because they've got a huge problem. Not only is the economy bad, not only are interest rates high, not only don't we have builders, not only don't we have the building materials to do it, but also, it really is, they're trying to tackle the slowness of councils, which is an issue. It's not a non-issue, it is an issue. Third-party rights, appeals, objections, all of those other things are going to be removed from quite a number of planning applications from this point forward when the state government gets that change in its process of planning. So this is, I think the office is very much spending time perhaps doing this work to actually give our reply and understand what is going on and give that feedback to the government, but I'm sure it's coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeff Goff. Councillor Michelle Clinett, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This is really appalling. If this goes ahead, this is not good for Manningham. Let's use as Councillor Goff said, so I won't repeat what he said, so he's covered that off really well on that point with regards to no right to object. But this is more than that. This is looking at screening as an example that is currently 1.7 to potentially 1.5. My height. Nobody's my height. 8-year-olds are my height. But that basically means if there's screening, you can look over. Don't laugh, it's the truth. It brings it right down. Now, when we have objections, when people have something next door to them, that's what they're always saying. I don't want someone looking over my backyard. We always say it's 1.7. You look, it's very hard, so you're looking out, you won't look down. They feel a bit assured. Now it's going to be as short as Michelle. Everyone's taller, they're going to see. So that goes away. What about setbacks? Currently setbacks, they're about, 9 metres? Yeah, well, it can be in many cases, all right? Councillor Goff, I'm not a planner, I'm just being very, in general. But this is the type of stuff that's changing. You can do something 9 metres and people still, they get very anxious next door saying it's too close. These changes potentially mean it could be like 3 metres. Bam, right up. And that's not all. That's not all it is. It's density. Currently we say no more than 60%. Now, sometimes I look and go, wow, that looks more than 60% coverage because, of course, the driveway concrete, is part of that coverage, and you get a little bit of green and that's part of the 40%. Well, that gets changed. So as far as looking green and lovely and luscious instead of concrete jungle, these are the type of changes. These are very poor changes. But what's even poorer is that if we didn't have such amazing officers that got the invite to go and have a look, to say to someone else at a conference, did you see these? Other councillors are going, what? I didn't see it. So it's very, very interesting. Many councillors heard about it on the general paper. I think it was The Age it was advertised in. That's how many heard about it. We heard nothing. We got no whisper of this. So it's been done in a really uncomfortable way when the state government is clawing back planning. And you know what? We do have one of the best planning quotas in the state. We get those facts. They do come to council. We do endorse them. We're doing very well. We do over 90% within the times. Of course, there's going to be some that are outside of that. That's the real world. But we do very good as far as meeting and working very hard to keep within the constraints to have the power that we can, and we try very hard to get it right. But there is a planning scheme in place. Every 4 years, a council re-looks at it with ministerial guidelines, and
Thank you,
we're getting
Councillor
these
Michelle
squashes,
Climate.
squashes
Would you
and
like
squashes.
some extra time?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Do I have any other speakers for the...
No, I'm all good. Thank you.
Good. Do I have any other speakers for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Deirdre Monte.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I support the comments of Councillor Kleinert. I think if we read directly from the report, it is very much a paper-based assessment disregarding neighbourhood character, as Councillor Goff has said. I'm very concerned about the removal for people to object. Objectors to a planning proposal will not be granted appeal rights to developments that comply with the Res Code standards. That's creating significant inequities for our residents, not having the right to object. I saw this on the Channel 7 News a few weeks ago, and they were talking about removing democratic rights to object to something that's being built next to them. It's creating huge inequities between developers and residents. I think the other proposed changes that concern me around the reduced front setbacks to 6 metres, we've talked about the overlooking impacts, but also the acceptable reduction of sunlight from 40 square metres to 25 square metres. I think that, whether it's privacy, whether it's mental health, whether it's the ability to use the sun to warm your home, these things for me are essential. Increasing site coverage, as Councillor Kleinert has talked about, reducing the protection of amenity on existing adjoining properties. We will have many new houses, but we will not have livability. I also, just again, I do not understand the government. The left hand and the right hand are not talking. So we've got a state government that's very strong on a climate emergency, and yet a number of these changes that are proposed are going to increase our use of energy. If you reduce sunlight, you will increase your heating bills. If you reduce the number of trees, because that's what's going to happen when you're reducing the amount of garden zone that's around, you're going to reduce the number of trees. Your houses will get warmer. You'll increase your heat island effect. We'll have to use our air conditioners more. We won't be able to open our windows because, as Michelle said, someone will be able to look into your home. So for me, these changes do not make sense, even from a climate perspective, notwithstanding all the other issues. And I also refer to the officer's comments in the report that the proposed changes to Res Code will only have some impact to increasing the number of homes required. I disagree with some of your comments, Councillor Goff, that Council has responsibility for the hold-up on developments. Even in our 23-24 performance statements coming to Council shortly, 90.2% of our applications were decided in the required time.
10%.
93% last year. I'd also like to say that we all supported...
Councillor Deirdre Monte, that's your time. Did you want to...
Thank you. Thank
Extend.
you, Councillor Goff.
So, Councillor Goff, you're a mover for an extension of time. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Andrew Conlon. All those in favour for an extension? And that's granted. You have a further 2 minutes, Councillor
Thank you, councillors.
Diamante.
I will not need the full time. And we also approved a report last year where it said that only 2% of our applications were refused. So our officers are doing an amazing job in progressing applications and doing the right thing for our residents at the same time. If I support what Councillor Chen said in the previous motion, I would really encourage all of our residents to write to their local state members about this, to really have a read of what these proposed changes are and the impact that this will have on their livability, not just in Manningham, but across Melbourne. There absolutely are ways that we can achieve more housing, but I don't think that this is a great way to do so. So I'd also like to thank our officers for the tremendous amount of work they put in this in such a short time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Diamante. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? Thank you, Councillor Anna Chen.
Thank you, Mayor. it's very interesting to see the proposed key changes because most of the time when we attended consultation meeting, the concerns managers are on setbacks, overlooking the site coverage, and the government just do the other way around. They reduce the front setback, reduce the overlooking, increase the site coverage, reduce the protection of amenity, and most incredibly, remove the ability to consider a transition. So just one rule fixed for all, and I'm not sure how it fits to Manningham's topography and the Manningham's the complete environment. And the particularly interesting thing is the deemed to compliant provisions, which essentially becomes a checklist for approving residential developments. The checklist, even a checklist, you need to be measurable with certainty. And but some of the provisions contain ambiguous language such as should and may, and the language can be confusing because you don't really know the provision impose an obligation or confer discretion. I doubt that whether they have consulted with a lawyer about the writing, about the legislation written. So I'm not quite sure about that. And there's a profound concerns about the transparent consultation with local councils and residents because the limited time and the feedback only from a selected stakeholders. We're lucky we have the opportunity to provide feedback, but what about the general municipalities as a whole? And also the removal of objection and appeal to VCAT. To the general community, ordinary residents seems to favor developers. And because you just simply remove the right for people who are affected to appeal to protect their rights, to have their rights to be considered by a VCAT member. So also no proper analysis of the long-term implication, such as the growth for public open space, schools, health services, drainage, sewage systems. Those basic infrastructure and services are very critical to a sustainable community well-being. So of course, we agree that more housing and more simplification of the planning system is good. But we do have serious concerns about the short engagement period and the significant rewrite of REST code. And that has been around for over 20 years. And so overall, I encourage everyone to write to have your say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anna Chan. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? Thank you, Councillor Stephen May.
Thanks, Mayor. So without doubling up, I agree with most of what has been said. I think when we talk about developers, we should perhaps also call them home builders because there is a slightly less pejorative term. We do have a housing crisis. There is a YIMBY movement. There are a lot of young people who can't afford to buy houses, who don't want to move to the last subdivision in Pakenham and would love to stay in Manningham. So I'm actually on board, and it is a worldwide thing. I mean, the biggest single agenda of the new UK government is planning reform. So it's a worldwide thing. I mean, people were talking about New South Wales local government elections last weekend. There was less of a backlash than we thought on all the planning reforms we've just rammed through. And they were expecting a bigger backlash. And there is a potential for a very big backlash to this. But so I'm disappointed with the process. It didn't need to be this rushed. And they are very seismic changes. So do them over 6 months. Don't do them over 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 10 weeks. So it's big, as was outlined in detail by my colleagues. You just didn't need to rush it so much. And but I think we have to deal with this as a package. There's a lot coming at us. There's the 39,000. We haven't had any rezones yet. Reach-in rezones like Box Hill and Camberwell, massive rezones and height changes, and councils totally sidelined. So we haven't had one of those yet. And these changes will densify, reduce cost, and speed up time. And all of that are pieces in the jigsaw of a housing affordability crisis. Yes, I agree that it will cause problems, but at the end of the day, there is also a problem, I believe, with the NIMBY movement, and And we just have to deal with the reality of growing population, and we can't just, put our hands in the air and say go somewhere else. I think it'd be useful for people to watch Q&A the other week when the new Housing Minister Claire O'Neill talked about how at the federal level they're really pressuring the states to do that. So we can all just bag our state government, but they're turning up to COAG meetings and housing minister meetings and being pressured by the federal government to do this with big bags of money being thrown at them. So it is part of a national agenda. We're at the end of the chain. In terms of appeal rights, when I was on City of Melbourne, there's no appeal rights in the capital city. And one of the officers explained to me it's because if you have appeal rights, the system gets gamed and competitors will object to try and stop their competitors from setting up. So sometimes appeal rights can be too generous. And, I'm not that overall opposed to a reduction in appeal rights. I'm more concerned about the as of right changes on things like setbacks and shadowing and those issues, as opposed to the ability to actually get in there and argue the toss. So well done to our officers, led by Fiona Trouse and Andrew McMaster, for putting together a strong submission in quick time. It's a credit to us that we were asked to submit. Not all officers were asked. And when Councillor Diamonte and Councillor Goff, the statistic I will add to what you said is Nillumbik were in their report
Councillor
last month.
Stephen Mayne, would you like extra time? Do I have a mover for an extension? Thank you, Councillor Thomas Lightbody. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Deirdre Diamonte. All those in favour for an extension? And thank you, Councillor Jeff Goff. Councillor Stephen Mayne, you may continue.
I did vote.
Sorry.
Thank you. I saw a big newspaper ad of performance metrics at Nillumbik. Big bold. We only did 58% of planning applications in time. Somehow they thought that was good and are putting it up in huge lights. So the criticisms of the sector, Councillor Goff, are not at us, but the criticisms of the sector, Councillor Diamonte, are legitimate, because there are many councils that are much worse than us, that are dominated by NIMBYs, that do thousands of conditions, that do go to VCAT 200 times a year. We're not one of them, but they are out there, and the state has to deal with the sector. So we can't say don't do this because we're good, when our neighbours are talking about 58%. That's 42% not met on time. That's not good enough. And that should be changed. And some of these changes will address councils like that aren't getting the job done. So it's a fast-moving space. Well done to the officers trying to juggle all of this. North East Link as well. Cripes, so much going on. I'm glad the report also says at point D to send this to all the local members, state and federal. That's a good to use the expertise of our officers to directly put it there. And I'm not so excited about telling all our residents to send thousands of mass. I'm not sure that's really the way council should do it. Let's do it through the chamber, through the officers, through the formal process, through the MPs, rather than gingering up, a mass sort of campaign. That's for the NIMBY movement, not us, in my view.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? Thank you, Councillor Andrew Conlon.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel like a couple of councillors have understated the impact of this, and what I can see is the intention of the government is basically to undermine councils, local government's role in planning, almost completely. So they're taking away the right of appeal, effectively, of residents around developments. And when we look at that checklist, as Councillor Chen pointed out, when you look at that checklist, it could, because it doesn't have any appeal rights, people can just go through the checklist and hope that whoever's looking at the other end agrees with that with their assessment of meeting that checklist, and bang, you're approved. Deemed to comply. Deemed to comply regardless of how accurate it will comply with or not. This is an attack on neighbourhood character. Most people I know who buy in this area buy because of the area, not to develop it. They buy because of the amenity of the area, not because they want to build 400 townhouses on a small little block. That's an exaggeration, obviously. But this is an attack on council, because do you know who's gonna cop the flak when all these developments get approved? It's going to be us. This is just a handball. Oh, we're not the bad guys here. State government, we're not the bad guys. It's look at the councils. They're the ones who they're the ones who've got these planning rules that they'll blame us for. Well, they won't blame us for because they won't be able to blame anyone. Everyone will just say, oh no, it's just gone, sorry, we don't have any say in that. It's just going to be pass the buck, until you go around and everyone just gets frustrated. So people who currently own houses in Manningham, we need to be worried. We need to be worried about the whole amenity of our area. It will change, it will have an impact. As the report says, people can build 50% on the boundaries, which means if you take the front and the back, that means all the way down the block, effectively, apart from the setback. All the way down. We're going to have massive issues of permeability. There's talk about, we've got stormwater discussions coming up. Well, we haven't considered the possibility and the likelihood of increased load on our stormwater because there's nowhere for the water to be absorbed because we've got 70% of site coverage, and then you are allowed to include driveways in your green areas. Therefore, 100% site coverage. We're talking. Let's not. I think we haven't been. There's a couple of comments here that make me really worried that we're actually not on the same page here. But I appreciate the officers putting together a strong submission, objecting to all this because it will have a long-term effect. And as Councillor Main said, well, there hasn't been a kickback or a sort of a pushback from the community in New South Wales. That's because they haven't seen it. So they haven't seen the long-term effects of it. You'll see it in 5 years. You'll see it in 10 years.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew Connolly. Did you want an extension?
Sure.
Do I have a mover for an extension? Councillor Anna Chen. Do I have a seconder for extension? Councillor Laura Main. All those in favour for an extension? And that's carried unanimously. Please continue.
It won't be. You won't see this for at least 5 years. You won't see the impact. In 10 years, you'll see a massive impact. In 20 years, we'll be living in high density, like everywhere, and we'll be wondering what happened. In fact, the statistics show that the most livable cities are right at Melbourne's. We're at the peak of most livability in Melbourne, at our current population. As soon as we get bigger, it gets less livable. These planning changes, this res code change, will make Manningham less livable in the future. It'll make it less livable for my kids, for my grandkids. And I've got 3 of them now, so I've got a. So that hasn't put a personal note in, but and more on the way, by the way. But there's more, I should say. I am increasing in population, and yes, I am worried about my kids having somewhere to live. But I want them to have a bit of a yard to play around in, or at least a green tree to look at, rather than a concrete driveway at the front of their townhouse, and not having any shade. We're going to have to spend a lot more on nature strips, I suppose, in terms of our trees. We're going to have a canopy cover that's going to go about 50 metres each side, because otherwise there's not going to be any natural shade in Manningham. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew Connolly. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? I would just like to speak to the motion. We are in a privileged situation to be able to submit this submission, councillors. On behalf of all our Eastern Region council groups, we were informed very last minute of this. Some were not informed. So our submission is so important because it stands up for our community, but it stands up for our whole Eastern Region community, who are very worried about the loss of residential amenity by these proposed changes. They are very worried about the loss of neighbourhood character and livability. They're very worried about the loss of community voice. And where we know that our tree canopy is at risk within the whole Eastern Region, but within Manningham as well, in Melbourne, we need to provide provisions that protect our tree canopy, and therefore these do not do that. By increasing site coverage, by reducing setbacks, you do not allow room for our trees to grow, and we need trees. We need trees to survive, to live. So these proposed changes are concerning because it will not just change the amenity, it will actually change the survival of our areas and of our eastern region. So I really ask the community to support Manningham's submission. I ask the whole eastern region to support Manningham Council's submission, and I seek for my fellow councillors to do so too. Thank you. With no other speakers, I will put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Item 10.3, Flooding and Stormwater Management Community Reference Panel, amended terms of reference. Do I have a mover?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jeff Goff. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Andrew Conlon. Councillor Jeff Goff, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hope this one's a little bit faster. Basically, we do have a panel that is giving us advice on drainage, and it's coming to the end of their term. We're going to roll them over because a lot of them are over, and this is just, I suppose, the process of going out to, I suppose, get more people for the committee and outlining the I suppose, the roles and responsibilities and everything else of that committee. So it is there, so I just think we should pass it.
Thank you, Councillor Jeff Goff, and that was shorter. Councillor Andrew Conlon, would you like to speak to the motion?
I would like to give a shout out to the the committee, the panel, our current panel, our flooding and stormwater management community reference panel. We've got an amazing group of people there, having been on that for a couple of meetings now, and the level of expertise is fantastic and really valued by me personally, and I believe by the officers, because it does really help shape and get better policy. So that's a shout out to the people who have served on the panel, and this is like Councillor Goff said, we're looking for re-applications and to expand the committee, and hopefully we can get some more people who are passionate about making good decisions, passionate about listening, passionate about having good input into the future of flood management and stormwater management. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Do I have any speakers for the motion? Do I have any speakers to the motion? I will also take the opportunity as a council representative on the Flooding and Stormwater Community Reference Panel to congratulate all the work that has happened so far in the panel. Of course, the current members were under a term of reference for 4 years, but first it had to be 2 years with the opportunity for a 2-year extension to be able to make that 4 years. So I do congratulate the current members for receiving the 2-year extension already on their 2 years. As Andrew Conlon said, it is their expertise, their knowledge and their commitment to the dedication of best practice when it comes to addressing flooding and stormwater. I also say that the panel is important because it gives our community perspective before our strategies, plans and documents go out to public consultation. So it is a really important role. And councillors, we only just saw how important that was when we met our community panel over the weekend, and the input that they can give us, the questions they can ask us, the knowledge they can share with us, and a reference panel like this does the same. So I ask the community, if you have an interest on drainage, stormwater, water resource management, seeing water as an asset, as a vital resource for survival, then I encourage you to seek to put in an application to be on the Flooding Stormwater Management reference panel, because we are looking for people of all ages, all cultures, with expertise, interest, knowledge, and a passion to be the community voice. And thank you to the members who have done that, and also to fellow councillors for being on the panel. Thank you. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Goff, did you want to close? If there are no other speakers, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 11, connected communities. There are no connected community reports this evening. So item 12, city services. 12.1, stormwater management prioritisation draft policy. Do I have a mover?
Madam Mayor, I move as on the paper.
Thank you, Councillor Jeff Goff. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Andrew Conlon. Councillor Jeff Goff, did you want to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I suppose we've just looked at a committee, but this committee was involved with a lot of other people in our staff and other people to come up, I suppose, with this management. It says management prioritisation, but it actually is our policy manual for stormwater and water treatment there. And I can remember one of the first nights of this new committee was looking at the, I suppose, the holistic statement of, I think a whole policy statement was run through the council of the people on that, and we refined that. And that committee has been part of reviewing and assisting in the creation of this document, and even to the prioritisation criteria and other things. So these have been discussed by that committee that we just were talking about before. So it's good that we've got this here, and it's what we can hand on to the new council to work on one of the major issues of our community, and that is, I suppose, flooding and drains and capacity and what we do in situations where we have little quick storms. And I think it was Councillor Lightbody that tweeted on the weekend that there was a little storm on top of a hill somewhere very recently or you didn't tweet, or you sent a message or something. It's all the same to me. But I read it. And it was on top of the... No, I didn't read far. But yeah, okay, so thank you very much for this being put up, and I hope everyone supports the policy.
Thank you, Councillor Jeff Goff. Councillor Andrew Conlon, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'd be happy to, Mayor. Yeah, this is a really important policy. It's great that we do now. We'll have a draft stormwater management policy, given how important that area is in terms of, I guess, an essential service probably that council provides. It's absolutely critical for us to get rid of water from our land and from properties around Manningham. I like where it's landed in terms of defining roles and responsibilities of property owners and Manningham Council, Melbourne Water, etc. Like in terms of who's responsible for what. It refers to a couple of acts there, but what I really like is a prioritisation criteria in the draft, which talks about how would we assess projects that would need new infrastructure, because we can't do everything at once. As we've found with anything we try and do, we can't. It has to be planned out, and we have to make decisions about what's going to come first. And I appreciate that we're just taking a scientific approach to this with obviously flood frequency and flood hazard based on modelling and mapping data, as well as history, is a key part of prioritisation. As well, it's got to be financially sustainable. We can't just spend a massive amount of money trying to fix a little problem when we've got a bigger problem down the road that would take the same amount of money, for example. It's got to be give bang for buck, and I think that's outlined there. And there's a few other great things in there about integrating stormwater system to enhance use of community spaces. That's really novel idea. Probably not that novel actually, but it'd be nice if actually we started using some of our stormwater to, I don't know, create a instantaneous spring in the middle of a park rather than in the middle of the road, sort of thing. So, yeah, that I think those sort of things would be great. But yeah, thanks to the officers, thanks to the panel in particular for working on this over such a long time, and it's great to see it come to fruition. And I hope we can approve the draft tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew Conlon. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Do I have any other speakers for the motion? Do I have any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Goff, would you like to close?
No.
With no other speakers, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 12.2, Civic Works Panel Contract, Panel MP 001231. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Michelle Kleinert.
That the recommendation be adopted.
Do I have a seconder to the motion? Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Councillor Michelle Kleinert, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Stephen Mayne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So this is authorising the spending of $5 million a year. So it is quite important, and it also partly explains why, as a council group, we don't have that many contract awards coming to us, because we tend to be running on the panel model, whereby, as you can see from reading the report, we've approved, or the recommendation is for 10 different contractors to be awarded contracts worth $5 million a year across the range of civil works types of projects, or the full gamut of council's civil work. So rather than a tender coming up for council for a $1.5 million footpath job, it's authorised and done under delegation with this overarching type of approval. And the following resolution is similar on building works, but the spend is $2 million. So between this resolution and the next one, we are authorising CapEx of $7 million, and it is transparent. It is interesting that we're lifting the panel's power from 500,000 to $1 million per project. So that reflects sort of all the inflation that we've seen. And it just also reflects an increase in the delegation, which is a confidence of council to trust the officers to award $1 million contracts under this overarching authorisation. So we've seen significant increases in costs in some of the big contracts we have approved in this term, particularly the trees contract, and the concrete contract was up 17%. So it is a legitimate point that council capital works budgets are delivering less projects for the same money because of the rising costs that we've seen across the board. I'd also like to commend the previous council. I think it was 2018 when they abolished the community contributions for footpaths and drainage policy, which led to endless voting and campaigning and literally scheming, working up schemes, and not much getting done. And to make that decision to abolish that, and then this is twinned with it, because having decided it's council's core job to get on with doing footpaths and drains and not trying to get householders to pay for it, which they're still doing in Phillip Island and other places, and nothing much gets done. It was a great decision in 2018 by the councillors on that who made that decision. And combined with this, you are seeing more concrete out there, more footpaths, more drains, more of everything, because of the governance arrangements that we've put in place with both policy, budgets and panels. And I personally am very confident and comfortable with the delegations and the way we're going about it, and I'm very impressed over the course of this term with the amount of actual projects we've delivered, lots of them small, not noticed, but to a scale that hasn't been done in Manningham for many years, doing quite a bit of catch-up work, but it's been a good job, and voting in favour of this will mean more of the same, councillors. So I'd recommend that you don't vote against it.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Do I have any speakers against the motion? No. Do I have any other speakers for the motion? Do I have any speakers to the motion? Councillor Michelle Kleinert, would you like to close? No? Okay. With no other speakers, I will put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 12.3, Building Works Panel Contract Panel MP 001235. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Michelle Kleinert.
That the recommendation be adopted.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Thomas Lightbody. Councillor Michelle Kleinert, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Thomas Lightbody, would you like to speak to the motion? With no speakers, I will put that to a vote. No. Everyone want to speak against the motion? No, no speakers too. Would anyone like to speak to the motion? No. Okay, with no speakers, I will now put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Item 13, Spirit, Experience and Capability. Item 13.1, Manningham Quarterly Report, Quarter 4, April to June 2023 to 24. Do I have a mover for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Deirdre Day-Monte. Councillor Stephen Mayne, do you want to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. So for the 16th time in this four-year term, we are approving a quarterly report, the last one for the term, rounding out the financial year. So perhaps it's an opportunity to step back and make some reflections on the overall situation of the council. In terms of I'll start with some of the specifics. The software costs 689,000 over budget in a big tech, charging us, they're gouging us, and we're investing in cybersecurity and all those issues. But it is a rising cost. The federal government, with their funny buggers on accounting, this year they've decided that they've got a surplus, so they're not going to shove money out the door before June 30 because they want to make the election year budget look better. So we haven't received 1.7 million in federal grants in the current year as we were expecting, because Jim Chalmers is massaging the numbers politically. So that's noted in the report and makes the surplus appear lower than was expected. We did have a $3.2 million surplus because we're going to get an extra grant in July, because that's just how the feds are running their budget massaging. In terms of other notables, I was a little worried when I saw that we'd got an extra 140,000 in utilities revenue from third parties, and I'm just a bit nervous about whether we're going into the sporting clubs with an audit and maybe shoving some bills their way that we were covering previously. But look, it's great for the institution of council, but sometimes we need to look beyond the institution of council and think about the community and the smaller players who are battling with volunteers and cost of living and all the other challenges that we hear about. Legals, we're over, substantially 6 figures over. We've been going hard on pools. We've been compulsorily acquiring properties. We've had quarry processes. There's been a lot going on, all the planning changes. So we have been spending a lot on the legals. On the upside, containers has been great. Extra 320,000 unexpected revenue from the state government container deposit scheme, which has been nice revenue to have. But the point I want to make overall is that the start of the term, we said we'd lift the capital works budget from 45 million a year to 55 million a year because we'd seen a projection that we were going to have a cash balance of 175 million in 10 years. It's been quite difficult to spend that 55 million a year. It's 220 million over 4 years. In the end, we've sort of got close, but this year sort of tells part of the story that we spent 45 and we bought $5 million worth of property. So it did get the number up to 50. And over the term, we have bought 8 houses for about 13 million. And it sort of demonstrates our financial flexibility that we can do that. And you look at our net assets, they're up by 71 million to 2.77 billion. If we ever got anywhere near financial trouble, we could sell $50 million worth of surplus, useless land in a drop of a hat. And I actually personally reckon that would be the way to go. This term, we've shown that we can buy properties to improve our property portfolio. Next term, I reckon you could sell off a lot. You're already starting with 66 million in cash. We could do more. Why are we only spending 200,000 a year on our 25 kinders in terms of stay in business capital works? Yes, we do stuff when there's a grant, but when we look at our funding on kinders without a grant, 200,000 is not enough. We've got capacity to do more. St David's pitch can be accommodated, in my view. I think they made a pretty persuasive pitch. I won't be here next term, but I'd be slotting it in. We can deliver the DISC master plan and fixed badminton in the next term. Might be 8-10 million. We've got the money. We can deliver a second diamond for the baseball club at the quarry site. We don't need to be fully commercial on that. They've submitted, they'd like that. We have the cash. Read the numbers. It's in there. So we could support our traders. Banyule does $1 million a year to the traders. We do nothing. We could do
Point
that.
of
There is
order.
capacity.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Deirdre Monte. What's your point of order?
I think Councillor Main strayed away from what was actually in the quarterly report, starting to put on the agenda what councils should be doing next year and how we should be spending our money. So I think it was irrelevant at best and improper.
Thank you. Councillor Stephen Mayne, I will agree with that statement and ask that you stick to the detail in the quarterly report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. We have also done some great things with funding in this term. The $1 million on the battery at Mullumbullen, the EV charging contract, the bringing forward of the Ruffy Lake Master Plan, the youth hub, the co-worker facility. There's lots of great things which is in this report that have been funding. It's great that we've got $5 million in revenue from our subdivision tax this year, the highest we've had for the term. It used to be about 6, it dropped to sort of 3 to 4, it's up to 5. That means there's an uptick in housing construction. People are actually saying we're going to get on with it, and we benefit. We've had $5 million this year, and it's all listed. It's a very transparent report. I'm great. We've got the transparency of things like Aquarena revenues and from the Lion Leisure disclosed there. I personally still think that $10.50 for a casual swim, we could have been a bit more generous with that, and you might want to look at that in the future. There's financial capacity to do that. It's going to rise to $800,000 from the Aquarena highball contract next term under the contract. $700,000 a year in revenue, which is in this report from Manicare. That's a lot of revenue from an aged care facility. Do we need to have to be so commercial with that? These are issues, I think, for the future. I won't be here, but I just encourage the councillors to look at these reports and say we don't need to be so conservative. We're in a great financial position, and we could do a whole lot more in the next term if we had the political will to do so.
Thank you, that is time. Do I have any, Councillor Deirdre Day Monte, would you like to speak to the motion?
You do have a Councillor Deirdre Day. Just quickly, because Councillor Mayne summarised the report very, very well. I was at a meeting, Madam Mayor, last week, and the residents were asking what's happening with the project, the traffic lights at Merlin Street in Doncaster. And we talked about it, but I encouraged them to read our quarterly report. So I'd encourage all of our residents to read the quarterly report. As Councillor Mayne went through, you can have a look at what's happening with visitors at Aquarena, what's happening with customer service and responsiveness, what's happening with our capital works program. And I do want to thank Councillor Mayne, because throughout his term he has really focused the council on transparency, and this report has a lot of transparency on council's activities across both operations and capital projects. So I really do encourage our community to have a look at it and see how the money is being spent very wisely. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Diamonte. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Do I have any other speakers for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Andrew Conlon.
I actually have a question, and it relates to Councillor Mayne's. I probably should have called a point of order, perhaps. But this assumption that we've got 50 properties that we can sell and get $50 million or whatever, my understanding of the windfall gains tax that the state government is now imposing is that for us to sell any sort of land that's not currently zoned residential, which we don't have that much of, we would have to rezone it, in which case we would have to pay most of the windfall gain to the government, state government, and it would not be worth selling on behalf of for any reason. Thank you.
I'm happy to answer that question really briefly. It's a complex thing, obviously, the windfall gains tax, and you know, in terms of selling properties, obviously there are some advantages to rezoning properties to increase the value before selling them. That happens, and certainly if we chose to do that, we would be subject to windfall gains tax if we chose to rezone and then sell a property.
Respond to the point of order.
Thank you. I don't have. I was just asking a question. Thank you.
No, it was just a question. Do I have anyone else who would like to speak to the motion? Okay. Do Councillor Mayne, did you want to close?
They have a
It
closing
doesn't
right,
matter.
councillors. We
Thank
changed
you.
the rules. Now I've got 47
Sorry.
questions, unlimited.
Councillor Mayne, did you wish to close?
I do.
Thank you.
To take up Councillor Conlon's point, I actually wasn't contemplating strategic property portfolio major sites. I was only contemplating the many, many dozens of snake catchers we've got in courts and all over the place that don't need to be rezoned because they're already residential. So
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, a point of order. This is irrelevant to the quarterly report. We're getting into a debate about something that's irrelevant to what's in the quarterly report.
Can I
Thank
respond to
you.
that?
Councillor Stephen Mayne, can I ask you to close your to the councillor, to the quarterly report, please? Just focus on the quarterly report and no new information, please.
I have to defend my colleague here. We did actually pass rules.
Yeah, he's allowed to close.
No, he's allowed to close. He is also allowed to bring in new information, which wasn't allowed beforehand. So we made the change.
Not
So
true. We didn't.
No, sorry, Councillor Jeff Goff, we said no extra information and Councillor Goff Councillor Stephen Mayne has not brought in new information, but I am ruling in favour of the point of order, which was to focus on information that is relevant to the quarterly report. So Councillor Stephen Mayne, would you please close with information relevant to the quarterly report?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I will make one point that the standing orders do not refer to relevance. They refer to misleading. And also this is a very broad document and I am very surprised that there could be any constraint. This document talks about our net assets rising by $70 million to $2.77 million. This document talks about us spending $5 million buying properties. How it can be irrelevant then
Councillor
say we could
Stephen
sell
Mayne,
properties.
could we just close the...
I'm closing.
Yep, thank you, because there is a point of order on information being irrelevant, but I would like to give you your opportunity for 2 minutes to close.
Another thing that's in the report, in the financial outcomes that I didn't mention earlier, but is in the report, so I'll run the gauntlet of the new information, whether it was you have to orally mention it or whether it can be in the report, but I'm really proud of the fact that we're spending almost $1 million a year more on libraries. And we've substantially expanded the hours. I think that's going to be one of the great investments, which can be seen with a close to $5 million spend on libraries. It's a very chunky number. It's a loved service, and I think it's been one of the best things we've done, is spend a large amount of money more expanding our library service. So well done to everyone who supported that.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. I will put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Item 14, Chief Executive Officer, 14.1, 2023-24 Financial Report and Performance Statement, Approval in Principle. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Deirdre Del Monte.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Andrew Conlon. Councillor Deirdre Del Monte, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I guess just a little bit of background. As a member of the Audit and Risk Committee, I would like to confirm that this report was reviewed by the committee on the 6th of September. The Audit and Risk Committee was very satisfied that they were very satisfied themselves with the report. They were also satisfied that an external audit had been undertaken, and the committee provided in principle support for the submission to the Auditor General's, the Victorian Auditor General's Office, that likewise supported the reports. So congratulations to the Council once again for providing such a clean set of reports, and the Audit and Risk Committee also noted on that state of the reports. A few of the facts, and some of them Councillor Mayne touched on in talking about the quarterly report, the $8.3 million operating surplus, which was slightly up from the last financial year. The $5.5 million adjusted underlying deficit compared to $4.8 million in 22-23, mainly driven by one-off expenditure items, but also the timing of the financial assistance grant that Councillor Mayne discussed. The council continues to be debt-free. Councillor Mayne spoke about the capital works program, so it is pretty impressive, $50 million in capital works, which does include land acquisitions, but also footpaths, roads, parks and open spaces, drainage, community facilities, of course the library, and cash and investments at 66 million. And I think it's really good to have a firm picture of what cash and investments balance we have got. The document also has a performance statement which has a range of service and financial performance indicators, which is really interesting to read how council's performing across the board in other services. So as an example, aquatic facilities, we had 5.1 visits to Aquarina per resident, which I think is pretty impressive when you think of how many residents we've got. And that's up 52% from the indicator last year. So we've had a really successful transition to Lion Leisure, and congratulations to all those involved. Statistics that I'm really keen on is around FOGO, and we've had 37% increase in waste diverted from landfill as a result of FOGO. I just think that's amazing, and that's a huge shout out to all the Manningham residents that are really complying with FOGO, and hopefully you're finding it quite a joy as well. And then the last one I wanted to talk about was staff turnover, which was up 32.5% compared to 18.8% last year, but we should note that 20% of this represented staff within our age and disability support service team that sadly left the organisation following council's decision relating to in-home aged care services. So yeah, congratulations to the report, to the council officers in putting together such a clean set of numbers and all the performance over the last 12 months.
Thank you, Councillor Deirdre Diamonte. Councillor Andrew Conlon, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I think we've gone over this a number of times. So, given that this is the audit, this is approval of the audited report. So I'm happy to let it go. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Do I have any other speakers for the motion? Do I have any speakers to? Councillor Deirdre Diamonte, you don't wish to close? No. All those in favour, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour of the motion, and that's carried unanimously. Item 14.2, Audit and Risk Committee Chair's Biannual Report. Do I have a mover?
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
I will second the motion. So, Councillor Deirdre Diamonte, would you like to speak to the motion?
Only very briefly, Madam Mayor, just to say that as a member of the Audit and Risk Committee, firstly, thank you to the members of the Audit and Risk Committee. It's been a great year and there's been a lot of activity that's gone through the committee. Thank you to our auditors that have looked at functions such as grants process and technology process, looking at food compliance, our risk registers, our financial reports. It's been very wide-reaching, and the Audit and Risk Committee report shows that Council's in a strong position relating to managing the outcomes of these internal audits as well as our risk registers. I do think it will be good, and looking at the Audit and Risk Committee and speaking to the Audit and Risk Chair when he came presented to Council, that councillors in the next term take a stronger position in reviewing risks and understanding those major extreme risks that may come to pass. Hopefully they don't, but I think it's great that there's a recommendation that there's that stronger involvement of councillors in that.
Thank you for that. I will also speak to the motion. I just would like to thank the Audit and Risk Committee for their due diligence in committee meetings. It is important to have an Audit and Risk Committee. The whole purpose of it is to identify risk areas for Manningham Council and to make sure that we have all the processes and the procedures to identify those risks, to mitigate those risks and to deal with those risks. And if we think about if we think about us as a governance board and how important it is to have good governance, then we think about audit and risk. It's so important to have internal processes that work and protect the organisation, because that's protecting our community. The other aspect of the audit and risk is to be looking at making sure that our financial position, as we just moved before, is accurate and is transparent, and also is in a good performance. That's with the performance indicators. And it's also about enhancing the quality and the confidence and the integrity of council. And we can be really pleased that our audit and risk report does that. We can be really proud of the processes in place. So I will leave it at that, and I encourage my colleagues to support the biannual report. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Do I have any other speakers for the motion? Do I have any speakers to the motion? Councillor Domonte, would you like to close? If there are no other speakers, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Item 14.3, proposed road naming, unnamed laneway between Robert and Helena Streets, Bulleen. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Jeffcoff.
Madam Mayor, I move as on the paper.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Michelle Clonett. Councillor Jeffcoff, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Look, there is this area that has probably got houses being attached to it through the laneway now, and in order for the post office, I assume, the post office to get an address, we're actually naming that little lane. So that will be named, and it's going to be Brickmakers Lane. Brickmaker. What's that?
No, continue, please,
Thank you, very
Councillor
right.
Goff.
I could read it without my eyes. There you go. So anyway, this is going to be registered and go through, so I think we should vote on it.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Councillor Michelle Clonett, would you like to speak to the motion? Do I have any speakers against the motion? Do I have any other speakers for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne.
I'd just like to say that I like the name Brickmakers Lane, because the Boral Brick Factory down there, I think, was the biggest industrial operation in Manningham. It was a very large operation. When I was growing up, the place that people went, if they had a jack of school and get a job, it was stacking bricks at Boral Bricks. And Boral came along, and a lot of these brick manufacturers have ended up making billions, just becoming property developers. And this was one of the early ones where they sold it off for, tens of millions of dollars. The officers did a great job with the rezone. It's a lovely subdivision with the curving streets and the slightly larger blocks. It's one of the best subdivisions in Manningham. But this name speaks to that heritage, because, having just lost Bulleen West with North East Link, we're down to Sonico and not much else. So this is a nod to a sort of it's 35 years ago, I reckon. It's a long time ago, but it was a very large employer, a big employer, Boral Bricks Factory, using the clay from near the river and all that. That's why it was located there. And then it turned into a beautiful development, and this laneway will reflect that history. So a good choice to go with it.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Jeffcoff, would you like to close?
Yes, I would like to close, because this particular lane has nothing to do with the brickworks. That was to the next block. And this actually here has been there since 1940. It has been there since the 30s and 40s and 50s. So that particular lane, it's near, but not quite on the brickworks. Thank you.
Thank you. With that clarification, I will put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 14.4, appointment of authorised officers, Planning and Environment Act 1987. Do I have a mover?
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Laura Mayne. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Andrew Conlon. Councillor Laura Mayne, did you want to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Andrew Conlon, did you want to speak? No. If there are no speakers, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour of the motion? And that's carried unanimously. Item 14.5, informal meetings of councillors. Do I have a mover?
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Anna Chen. Councillor Stephen Mayne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Now, we had a coffee recently and you made a point that really resonated, which is that we need to do a better job as councillors in reporting back to each other on what happens at our various committees. And I also thought, and also reporting back to the community. And then I sort of thought, this standing item at a council meeting is the perfect opportunity to regularise that. Report to each other on what happened at various committees that we've been at and inform the community and thank the committee members. So normally we just say, no one says anything and just waves it through as if it's a boring piece of compliance. And it is forced transparency by the state. But there's a lot of good stuff in here. And so I'm going to take my 5 minutes to mention a few things and thank a few committee members and point out how transparent we are. So at the first of the 12 items which are noted with all the full agenda and attendees, at that 31 May Audit Committee meeting, we looked at the asbestos management and the undertaking of council activities. A lot of other councils have been hit hard by asbestos scandals, and we're on it, as you can see, through the Audit Committee, looking at it. No big scandals, but we're looking at it. We're managing it. We're on top of it. And if you go through to look at, say, for instance, the SBS meeting, with SBS is every Tuesday, well, most Tuesday nights we meet on 13th of August, we did our service review areas and outcomes. We got this rolling program of 6 service reviews a year. It's a really good management, accountability and keep on your toes sort of program. And you can see we had the annual update on that. And we also dealt with the Manningham submission for Doncaster Park and Ride. So we've been talking about this for a number of weeks now, getting ready for what we ultimately approved tonight. I attended the Multicultural Communities Advisory Committee on August the 19th, and there's something in there, point 2, called Community Pulse Check, which has been a great introduction to that committee that might work in all committees, which is go around the table with the community and give them a chance to report back on anything which is on their mind or anything which has happened in their community. So don't just make them wait till other business or at the end if they've got something they would like to walk in, have it high up on the agenda. And I think that's been a great change, led by the chair, Councillor Diamante. And we've had some difficult issues with this committee, with Gaza, and we're back on track, and it's being well chaired, and we're cohesive, and we finished the term on a good note. And I've been pleased to be on that committee for 4 years, and I hope it continues successfully. It's an important committee for us to continue to run. And just a couple of others. The CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee meeting. As you'll note, all 9 councillors were there. That's because all 9 councillors are on the committee. I personally hope the next council will go for a smaller committee with an independent chair, which is the model that many go with, but no scandals to report. In that one, we've got an excellent CEO, and we pay him less than most CEOs for his excellent work. And then finally, others can deal with livable spaces and Disability Advisory Committee, but overall, we've got a good committee program. The last one I was going to mention was the RASAC, the Recreation and Sport Advisory Committee. Councillor Collins done a great job chairing that since we set it up 2 years ago. That was a mid-term committee with a 2-year tenure for the 15 community members we appointed, the biggest of our committees. They've done so well that I really hope that we roll into the next term and keep it going, because it does have a drop-dead clause in that one. That was a sort of a try before you buy, and I won't have a seat at the table, but we had a lovely vibe in the room. We've had lots of great participation. It's been a ripper. The officers have really lent in on it, Lee Robson and her team, and we've had great feedback from the community. It's a big area, and I think it's been a really great committee to set up, and thanks to Councillor Conlon, who has chaired it really well from the outset. And you can see, if you look at the report, we had a participation workshop. How can we get participation up in sport and rec? We had a report back on This Girl Can. The Aquarina Master Plan was presented. How we're going to spend 25 million. That's really letting them in on what we're doing. And then we did a solid recap reevaluation. So overall, our committees are good. This is good transparency, and I don't think there should be any changes to the overall shapes of the committees. I think they should all be be brought forward. And I think the suggestion of yours, Mayor, about sort of giving them some more visibility with this item going forward is probably a good one.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Councillor Anna Chen, did you want to speak to the motion?
Very briefly, because this is our last council meeting in this council term. And I noticed that there are several informal meetings of councillors to attend, but I just want to thank the advisory committee meetings because they are the residents from our Manningham community, and they have the passion for their particular topics, and they actively participate in the discussion and provide very valuable feedback and advice to councils. And also special thanks to officers and who organize the agenda, brief councillor representatives, provide admin works at the meeting, and some officers have to attend several advisory meetings because we all noticed that this council had many more advisory meetings than the previous council. So in their role, they have attended many more than the previous council term. And it's not easy because they all have their own families to go to, and often those advisory committee meetings happen at night. So I just want to thank all the residents who participate in the advisory committees, and most importantly, officers who spend their time and organize everything and make all advisory committee meetings, all meetings, briefing sessions, make it very smoothly and easy to understand to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anna Chen. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Do I have any speakers for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Thomas Lightbody.
Thank you. Just also taking the opportunity to talk about our committees. I would like to thank all the officers for all the time they do and put into our committees, and apologise for a little bit as well, because I do remember right now that when I first got on council a few years ago, I took the opportunity to chair the Access and Equity Committee meeting. And after a few of them, the terms of reference came up for renewal. And instead of renewing them, I sort of, along with everyone else at the table, helped sort of get rid of that committee and replace it with a series of other committees, therefore theoretically creating more work for the officers. And those committees include the Multicultural Committee, our Gender Equity and LGBTQIA+ Committee, and our Youth Advisory Committee came under that as well, and Disability, but that was, I think, Michelle, you helped get that out in its own committee in the previous term as well? No, this term. Lots of committees, but I do think that it means that us as councillors and the staff here at council have been able to get a lot more information and a lot richer information and perspectives from all these different parts of our community. And I'd just like to thank them for all the effort they've put into our committees, but also thank all the people that are participating in our committees and will continue to in the future years. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas Lightbody. Are there any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Stephen Mayne, would you like to close? If there are no other speakers, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Item 14.6, documents for sealing. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Thomas Lightbody.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Andrew Connellan. Councillor Thomas Lightbody, did you want to speak to the motion? Councillor Andrew Connellan, did you want to speak to the motion? I'll put that to a vote as there are no speakers. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Item 15, urgent business. There are no items for urgent business, so I'll move to item 16, councillor reports and question time. Councillors, would anyone like to provide a report or raise a question? Thank you, Councillor Jeffcoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm rising actually to report to council and sort of perhaps, I don't know, pass a bit of emotion, but a man called Hector Davis, who is an important person for Manningham, did pass away early September. And he was one of the commissioners of Manningham when Manningham was formed. So Hector was here for the start of Manningham. He was a commissioner here from 94 to 97 because he was there when I was elected, and he passed the baton on. Previous to him doing that work as one of the 3 commissioners at Manningham, he was mayor of, I think it was Heidelberg, on 3 occasions, and was involved in local government for many years. And when the reforms came through in local government, Hector was one of the ones that were appointed here. For the people that actually worked at the Doncaster and Templestowe and Manningham, if you were here when I first started, the people absolutely loved Hector, because Hector was the one that sort of walked around and he was talking to every person in that organisation. And if you can remember, the organisation would have been going through a few little shudders because we basically more than halved our workforce in the reforms, and it was the reform of local government. And he did console a lot of people, and it was interesting because I used to go around and because actually the staff at the time, and even I was elected to start with, enjoyed the councillors going through and having a bit of a chat and having a bit of a relationship with them to get some things off their chest. And he was that conduit to get things off the chest in a very drastic period, and was very, very important to Manningham.
Councillor Jeff Goff, that is time. Would you
Thank
like to just finish that statement there, please?
Yeah, I just want to finish, and I think we should note, if we could note in our records, the passing of Hector and the contributions that he did make. And if he was 98, so if there are any other relatives or things like that, it'd be good to pass on that Manningham is all the better for the work that he did.
Thank you for your report. Councillors, do I have any other councillors who'd like to provide a report or raise a question? Thank you, Councillor Anna Chen.
And I think that is a very important time to have a report, because tomorrow is the Mid-Autumn Festival, which is an integral part of the Chinese culture. And of course, in the Southern Hemisphere, it is spring. Maybe it is easier to refer to it as a moon festival. And it is the time family get together to share moon cakes and admire the full moon, which we can all do it here. It doesn't matter whether there's a Southern Hemisphere or Northern Hemisphere. It is important that it signifies the time of unity, gratitude, and family bonding. I have had the honor to attend many celebration events in different forms, from the traditional opera performance to the more contemporary pop music and hip-hop dance. And I hope that we can all immerse in the spirit of the Happy Moon Festival and let us unite as one Manningham family. Allow me to borrow a quote from J.K. Rowling about the value of unity. We are only as strong as we are united, as weak as we are divided. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anna Chen. Do I have any other councillors who'd like to provide a report or raise a question? Thank you, Councillor Michelle Kleiner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a report, I suppose, that says for the close of the council term. Thank you. Thank you to all the staff, including the CEO, the directors, and those that help us prepare papers, that stay up late when we have late briefings, for all the additional committees that have been set up in this council term. Thank you. Especially like to thank the CEO right through down for providing us always with the information that we require to make the judgments that we do at the council table, and that I'd like that to be acknowledged. So this being really the last council meeting before we go into caretaker, I just wanted that opportunity to say my sincere appreciation and thanks. We came out of COVID in this term, and it was a really different term for everyone. So it's been a very different setting compared to prior. I forget what it was like prior. I feel like this has been my first time on local government. It's extraordinary to think, really. But being separated for so long, even though being in that role as councillor, coming back, so that should be acknowledged, and I want to say heartfelt thanks. There's been some brilliant stuff. I don't know where to start, where to end. Thank you to a community that has been absolutely awesome. We get the privilege of going to so many events, from Autumn Moon to friendship groups to sporting clubs to scouts, you know, from cradle to grave. It's really hard to think about, you know, where do you begin and when do you end, especially when you just look at just even between council meetings, you're always just picking one or two to highlight just the vast election of committees, being that there's over 800 community groups in Manningham, and we alone are just tipping the iceberg in what we get to see. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle Kleinert, for that report. Do I have any other councillors who'd like to provide a report or ask a question? Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne.
Yes, Mayor. So as the only definitely retiring councillor, I'd just like to make a couple of final comments and say that I think this has been a really good council. So much better than the 4 years I had from 2008 to 2012 here. One metric of how functional and good a council is the number of councillors who choose to run again and number of councillors who do get elected again. And I'm predicting that possibly everyone around this table who recontests will get elected again. And the community wouldn't be wrong in making that judgment, because there's no bad councillors around this table. And I've worked with some bad councillors over the years. I'd also like to thank the management team. We've got a fantastic CEO, and he's run a very good organisation, and he's got an excellent exec team. And I have full confidence in their ability to keep going. And as to that metric, I was going to say that of the 9 councillors who were elected in 2008, only 3 recontested and only 2 got back, because it was an unpleasant experience and we weren't very good. So this time, I think you can see it with the people that are running. I personally hope that we get a 4th straight majority female council going forward. I think it's great for the culture. We had a 7-2 council, didn't we, Councillor Goff, back in that time, and a lot of hard-charging blokes we were. Finally, I'd also like to note that as we've only got 3 hours tomorrow for nominations to happen, so if it stays the same and Councillor Diamante and Councillor Lang are not contested, they will save the ratepayers possibly a 6-figure sum in printing and postal and all sorts of stuff. So being so well liked to not be challenged is a budget save. So not saying competition is bad, but that might be an interesting outcome. And I'd just like to, I guess, it is question time as well. So I will finish with a final question. I did message the CEO that I think the cash balance figure we talked about at 66.3 was as of June 30. Does he have a current cash balance? And I know it's probably hard to ask. And if he doesn't have it tonight, could he pop it into the minutes in the answers to these questions, just to update the community with the latest figures, because we are in a really good financial position. I think that's one of the key metrics, and I'm really, really proud of that.
Your question to
strong
the CEO.
Financial management. So if you want to answer it now, I'll pop it in the minutes. I'm relaxed, but just a final question in question time.
And I'm happy to answer it, Councillor. At the 31st of August 2024, total cash and investments balance is 54.8 million. 50.44 million of that is restricted and 4.36 million is unrestricted.
Thank you, councillors. Do I have any other reports or anyone who'd like to raise a question? Thank you, Councillor Andrew Conlon.
Sure. I guess just in terms of reflecting on this term, I think it's been a great term. I really appreciate all the councillors around here. Thank you for the opportunity to lead you in that first year when we got the council plan together. So I think for us, the differentiator of this term was being really focused on the council plan and then sticking to it. And it was just really, I hope it gave the organisation a really good map of what we need to do over the 4 years. So I hope that we can repeat that next time in terms of getting a really good council plan together. It has been, we've had a few ups and downs. For me personally, that first year in COVID probably brought me a little bit undone personally, because I wasn't very good at sort of working from home, that thing. But I did build a wall at the back of my property, which I wouldn't have done otherwise, so that was good. So, but I hope we never have lockdowns again. But yeah, it has been a good term, and I do think we've got one of the best, if not the best, CEO in Victoria, and I think that's a credit to Andrew, but it's also why things get done. You know, we ask for things to get done. We challenge Andrew or the CEO, I should say, on culture, and things change, and they have gradually been changing. It is like moving an oil tanker, shifting culture, but I think we are now. When I get reports back from people about their interaction with Manningham, now mostly it's really positive. When I first started here, I don't think it was like that. So it was like, you know, why do they treat me like this and that sort of stuff. So I think there's been a really great culture change over that time, and it has been great. I'll give a shout out to my family because of the, you know, and all our families because of the time that this takes, and but what I feel like we're making a better future for our families here. So that's why it is sort of like a bit of sacrifice, but it's also self-interest in a way. So
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Conlon, at this time. Councillors, do I have any other reports? Thank you, Councillor Thomas Lightbody.
Just in echoing what everyone else has said, I would like to thank everyone around the table for the past 4 years. I think it's been really good getting to know everyone and learning from everyone's different experiences. Likewise, the officers, they're amazing. I think we've got really good leadership in all of our directorates, and obviously that's also attributable to our great CEO as well. I've had many conversations with councillors from all across Melbourne, and I don't think I've ever heard as glowing reviews of their CEOs or staff as we give ours. So that's probably a testament to him. And I think just the whole experience of being able to learn from our different officers who all have, you know, educations and backgrounds and histories in all different areas. Councillor Kleinert said, you know, we provide services from cradle to grave. I've learned about many things that I didn't know about before, like, you know, maternal child health, and then a lot more about our ageing population. So I would like to just thank them for all the work they put in and the information that they provide us in briefings and the opportunity they give to answer our questions, whether they're, you know, the brightest questions or sometimes they're silly questions if you were someone in that field. So I would like to thank them for that. And I would also like to thank Councillor Diamonte for being a good mayor when I was deputy mayor last year. I think she gave me the opportunity to learn a lot about the role, and it also gave me the opportunity to go out and meet a whole lot of different groups in our community as well. So I think we've had good leadership throughout our term, and I would like to wish everyone the best. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas Lightbody. Councillors, do I have any other reports or questions? Councillor Deirdre Diamonte.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to reiterate what's been said, and I think it's really important to do so. Firstly, I've thoroughly enjoyed working with all the councillors around the table, and I really enjoy your company as well as working with you. And highlights for me, as nerdy as this sounds, has just been working with you at SBS's and rocking up and seeing you each week. So I thank you for all of that. I love that this represents a true democracy. I love that we all have different positions, different come to things with different perspectives, and we make decisions based on the community, and I think that's just so tremendous. If all the governments did that, if all the governments governed that way, it would just be a really awesome place. So I've loved working with all of you, and to Andrew and the officers, absolutely thank you for all the advice and all the support and all the reports and all the questions and all the time. You're probably sitting behind us thinking, stop thanking us so we can go home. But a very heartfelt thanks to everybody.
Thank you. Councillor Deirdre Diamonte. Councillor Laura May, would you like to? And then I will.
Yeah, go, lucky last, and I'll be brief. Just reiterating the sentiments around the table. Just like to thank everyone in this room for everything they've done over the past 4 years. I think particularly for me coming into this role, particularly young, it really speaks to the nature of the organisation that you were so came with open arms and were so supportive and welcoming to me. And I'm just so grateful for the experience that I've had so far. And I think it's really broadened me as a person and just been incredible. So I'd love to be back. So just very thankful for everyone around the room and for the community for all the amazing input that they provide. And we really do try our absolute best to provide you with the best services that you absolutely deserve. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Laura Main. I'll take this opportunity to just say absolutely thank you to all my colleagues. Thank you to the organisation. Thank you to the CEO and the executive staff and to all the officers. Thank you that we are actually all here in local government to do the best at our expertise, our jobs, our advocacy, our representation for our community. And thank you for being here for that purpose. I wanted to thank the Deputy Mayor for her assistance and support and the growth that I have seen in a very smart, intelligent, capable woman. So congratulations for your year and thank you for everything that you have done. You have been a great support. I could not have got through November, December without you. So, because I juggled teaching as well as the Mayor. So thank you, and you really should be proud of your Deputy Mayorship and all that you have achieved, grown, and your bright future ahead of you. I also want to take the opportunity to thank our retiring councillor. Thank you, Stephen Main, for your years in local government. The community know you as someone who stands up for advocacy, for accountability, and for calling out the big companies to be able to support the local. So thank you for your advocacy, thank you for your support of our community and your input that you've put into Manningham Council and local government over a decade. And all the best for your retirement and your continued journalism future. I just want to thank the community for all their input and work with us to bring out the best in everyone. And I know we've had some big sporting successes with our local groups. We've got seasonal allocations changing, but we've also had our Mid-Autumn Festival, and I just really want to thank the community on everything that they do, from a sport and recreation to a meeting for coffee to community celebrations and cultural celebrations, for everything they do for the wellbeing and connectedness to our community. So thank you all on a wonderful 4 years. With that, I'll move on to item 17, confidential reports. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Diamonte.
I move that Council closes the meeting to the public pursuant to section 66(1) and 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020 to consider the following items. Item 17.1, formal quarry, outcomes and next steps. Item 17.2, CEO employment matters.
Thank you, Councillor Diamonte. Do I have a seconder for the motion?
I second the motion.
Thank you. All those in favour of the motion? No, because it's a confidential report. No, I'm just moving to close the motion to the public. Proceed, yeah. No, it's a motion to close the meeting. Thank you. Sorry, can I speak to it?
I'll do a point of order. Could we have clarity as to whether this is different from any other motions and that speaking is banned on this sort of motion?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's not a motion where speaking is banned, but the convention in practice is that you would normally not speak to a procedural motion.
So it is a procedural motion, is it? Right, okay, sorry, all right, okay.
Thank you,
fine.
sorry. So
Right.
can you please let me answer? Thank you, Councillor Goff. So Councillor Stephen Main, I've called for a mover, I've called for a seconder, and now I'm going to put the motion to a vote. So all those in favour of the motion? All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Therefore, we will now be closing the meeting to the members of the public and ending the live stream to consider these confidential reports. Thank you for joining the meeting this evening.